All right, at this time, we'll call to order the City of Kenai Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for March 22nd, 2023. Will you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item A2, roll call, please.
Chair Twait,
Here.
Commissioner Fikes,
Here.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Here.
Commissioner Costin,
He's on Zoom.
just making sure his audio works. Commissioner Costin is present on Zoom. Vice Chair Halstead,
Here.
Commissioner Glendenning,
Here.
Commissioner Woodard,
Here.
you have a quorum.
All right, before we get an agenda approval, I'll read the laydowns in. Add to item F1, Resolution PZ 2023-04, some public comments, and then to item L, some informational items, general public comments, and the River Center open house flyer. With that, could I get a motion, please? Vice Chair Halstead's eating. How about Commissioner Greenberg?
I move to approve the agenda as written with the inclusion of the laydown.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
Any objections? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Item A4, consent agenda. Commissioner, Vice Chair Halstead.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, second.
Second.
Any objections? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. Item C, scheduled public comment. We have none. Item D, unscheduled public comment. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak to an item not on the agenda? All right, we will move on then. Item E, consideration of plats. E1 is Resolution PZ 2023-06, recommending approval for preliminary plat for Barron Park Triumvirate addition to subdivide Tract 4A of Barron Park 2020 replat into 2 lots. Can I get a motion, please? Commissioner Greenberg.
I move to approve PZ 2023-06.
All right, I have a second.
I'll second.
That was a tie. We'll give it to Commissioner Woodard. Staff report.
Thank you, Chair Twait, and planning commissioners and members of the public. The project before you is a preliminary plat to subdivide the existing lot into 2 lots, and the property is located at 450 Marathon Road. As you can see with that red outline, these are the 2 lots that will be subdivided. Current use is vacant. Zoning is light industrial. The comprehensive plan designated as industrial, and each of the proposed lot, the first lot, which is on your left, tract 4A-1, is almost 4 acres, and the tract to your right or east, tract 4A-2, is approximately almost 2 acres. Surrounding uses include industrial, recreational, institutional, and commercial around the surrounding areas, and most of these properties are city-owned. So, your commission did approve a conditional use for the lot to the east on the approximate 2 acres for a performing arts center back in January. And this is just as a follow-up of their process to continue developing the performing arts center. So these standards for the subdivisions are met. Typically with subdivisions, there are installation agreements, but since this is surrounded by a developed road and a city-maintained road, there is really no infrastructure that will be required of the applicant to install. And this is the existing plat, and it's really hard to see, and I can't laser point it on the screen, but here is the proposed plat of what it looks like. So staff finds that this proposed preliminary plat meets the general standards of the subdivision regulations and recommends your commission to approve PZ 2023-06, recommending approval to the borough, subject to the condition listed in the resolution. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rizzo's here. Do we need to see if he has anything to add, or we just let him smile from the distance?
Since he is not the applicant on the subdivision,
Okay.
it's city-owned.
Okay.
so
All right,
during
well,
public comment, he can.
very good. All right. All right, so we have a motion on the floor before us. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Twait. Yeah, this is a subject that has been well identified and well discussed, and this is just a piece of the process in carving out the property that has been dedicated to the Triumphant Theater, and I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Greenberg.
I agree. I believe it's a house cleaning measure that's just an addition to what we've already been approving, so I would be in favor of this.
Any other discussion? All right. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fikes?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Costin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Olsted?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Glendenning?
Yes?
Commissioner Woodard?
Yes.
Chair Twait?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. We'll move on to item F, public hearings. F1 is Resolution PZ 2023-04, granting a conditional use permit to allow lodging on the property located at 1035 Angler Drive, parcel ID number 049-39036 in the Rural Residential Zoning District. Can I get a motion, please? Vice Chair Halsted.
I recommend we approve Resolution PZ 2023-04, granting conditional use permit.
All right, we have a second.
I'll second.
All right, staff report.
I'm just going to try to get it to the correct screen real quick, so bear with me with the technical difficulties.
You need to have tinfoil.
Okay. All right, the first public hearing item, PZ 2023-04. This is a conditional use permit requesting to use a single-family dwelling for lodging, and this property is located at 1035 Angler Drive. Current use, single-family dwelling. Zoning is rural residential. Comprehensive plan designated as low-density residential, and the lot size is shy of an acre. Surrounding use, to the north is a single-family dwelling, to the south, lodge and guiding, and to the west, a single-family dwelling, and to the east is Beaver Creek. So the applicants acquired the subject property back in October and would like to continue using the single-family dwelling for lodging. So a little history about this site. Back in 2012, the city approved a conditional use permit for lodging on the lot to the south as well as the subject property. So lots 4 and 5 were approved a CUP for lodging. And then in 2015, the CUP was amended to include guiding service up to 3 boats. For most of the time since 2012, it has always been under one ownership until last year. And so the best process moving forward in practice for the city is to require the new owners to obtain their own CUP, because otherwise I cannot split a conditional use under 2 different ownerships, because typically the practice is we transfer it over. So this is why it's before you. So the new applicants are just asking for the lodging, not the guiding. Not the best site plan to show on the plans, but there's the existing single family to the south around what you see is green. A little rectangular are the parking spaces. So it's my understanding, and the applicant is on the Zoom meeting, they can confirm how many bedrooms and so forth and how many people they intend to have. But it's their intention to have short-term and long-term. The intent is to hopefully have someone long-term during the winter months, and then the short-term, they do, as the property owners, want to live or like visit and stay in there, and when they're not there, to rent it out for short-term. That is the intent. So staff does find that they meet all the required findings to approve a CUP. It is consistent with the zoning, as this is really transferring over a CUP that's been in place since 2012 just to the new ownership, because this has been a use that's been around since 2012. Is there economic and non-economic value to the adjoining property neighborhood that will not be significantly impaired? Staff does not find that to be the case. As mentioned, this use has been around. And then with public services and facilities, that's already installed in place, and they're required to meet DEC's requirement and wastewater requirements. And since the comprehensive plan says it's low density, it's still a single-family residence. They're not adding on more units. It's, at the end of the day, it still will remain a single-family residence that will be rented out potentially for short and long-term rental. And staff does not see any potential public safety or health or welfare issues. These could be conditioned as deemed necessary by your commission, and criteria 6 is just additional conditions that may be needed to meet the first 5 criteria. So staff's recommendation is that your commission approve the CUP for lodging at this property located at 1035 Angler Drive. This concludes staff's presentation, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. At this time, if the applicant is on Zoom, we would go ahead and let them give any kind of a presentation they would like to before we open it up to the rest of the public.
Good evening. How you guys doing? My name is Ben Lovejoy.
I'm Kathleen Lovejoy.
It's an honor to be here with you guys this evening. Just a little bit about ourselves. My wife has been, frequenting Alaska since she was a little girl with her mother and father. Loves it up there as well as myself. I started going up there in 2016 with my wife. And it's a second home to us. We absolutely love it up there. So we basically want to just, continue to use, that single family home that we purchased. When we're not using it, we intend to use it a decent amount of the summer up there ourselves. But when we're not using it, we'd like to be able to share with other people, like, we've been shared on other places, and just give someone that opportunity. It's such a great place up there. We know a lot of family, and we've got some family and friends up there as well, that's willing to kind of oversee and watch the property for us. We also have additional long-term rentals that we have taken care of. We do intend to hire a property management company, working with Property Sisters right now to put together a plan. So we do have somebody to watch over and take care of, that aspect of the rental while we're not there. While we've been there, we've made a lot of friends, stayed personally with Evan and Kathy Harding at Hardy Kenai Lodge, fished with Ross at Riddles Fishing. Just have some good friends up there. We love it up there. I want to continue to go up there and use our place, as well as just offer it to the public that can make good use of it and enjoy it like we have. A couple points that I want to add into it. We want to continue to make improvements on the property. We feel that really using it as a short term as well as potentially a long term, more of a short term, I feel like it keeps it, more of an appealing curb appeal, that getting someone in there that is there for the entire year, you have less control over, upkeep and maintaining a good image. By doing, a weekly rental or whatnot, a short-term rental, it allows us to really be able to take pride ourselves in knowing that we've got guests coming in. Just, you know, keep it nice and beautiful, upkept for people coming in week by week. So yeah, I feel like the short-term rental, obtaining the conditional use permit is better than doing a long-term rental, in my opinion. And you know, it also continues to bring more revenue to the city of Kenai, the community, and as well as for the state. So.
Yeah, and like was already brought up, it's basically just kind of continuing on with what Steve had already had in place at the property prior to us purchasing it from him. So he's still right next door, so might be able to get a few tips from him on, you know, how he's been successful with doing what he's been doing. I know there's been a few concerns that someone submitted via a letter, so just kind of wanted to touch on those as far as quiet hours, excessive noise, things like that. We do plan on putting rules as far as quiet hours. I was talking to my parents who also have multiple different vacation rentals and kind of tips and tricks that they've gone through that have worked. And there's actually something you can install in the home to help monitor decibels of noise. And if that exceeds a certain limit, then it actually notifies whoever's managing the property, owners, or whoever you want to have that set up. So we could kind of keep tabs on noise that way. And then also just have quiet hours in place, because I mean, speaking from experience, I really can't stand when I'm trying to go to bed, or, you know, I want to have peace and quiet and people are being really loud. So that is really important to us as well. So yeah, as far as parking, wouldn't be any street parking, just minimal amount of vehicles on the property. And it is a 3-bedroom unit. So we would just have, I think we had talked about a max of maybe like 6 people.
Yeah,
that could accommodate.
6 people or less. It will be specific to a group of people. It will not be managed as, say, a hostel where we have a group of 2 and then another group. It will be all one group that comes together. You know, there will be rules in place that they are to use the house only for, you know, for sleeping and whatnot. There will be, you know, no RVs, no tents allowed. And then, yeah, like my wife said, the parking, there's designated areas on the premises for parking, nothing off on the street or in neighbors, you know, property or anything of that matter. So, and then, yeah, it will be used just as, you know, a single family home, essentially. There will be no guides fishing off of the dock, using that dock as guiding. So yeah, specifically just for lodging. So yeah, that's all we've got. If you guys have any questions for us.
Yeah, we're happy to answer anything.
All right, we will get back to that after we let the rest of the public testify. There may be some questions that come up from that, or just with the other commissioners once we start looking at it. So at this time, we'll open it up to public testimony. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak to PZ 2023-04. Have you just come up and give your name and just let us know if you're a resident of Kenai. I don't need your address anymore.
Not anymore?
No.
Greg Anderson, I live in the area. On face value, from what it looks like, this looks like a great application. I don't see anything that throws up really any red flags to me. I've lived on the street for a long time. I've been on that property many times. As a guide, 37 years ago, I worked for Bly back in the day. And my biggest concern with that's not been addressed in there, and they briefly talked about it, was what's going to happen with the dock. Because of, you know, they say no guides are going to be working off the dock. I talked with State Parks today, and just like with you guys, if there's a change in ownership, that the dock has to have its own permit. They have to apply themselves for a permit. And in that permit, it specifically states what the use is going to be. And are they going to be offering then dock space for someone that comes and rents the place? Does that mean then that they're going to be trying to pull a trailer in and out of the property there, storing their, you know, so someone rents the place for a week and, hey, we've got dock space here and you guys can come use the dock. Well, there's not been any enforcement on dock rules on Beaver Creek since forever. 80 square feet is what it's supposed to be, but yet that's 80 square feet is more than one. There's places that there's 4 fingers that are 80 square feet each, along with the main walkway. So, I'm not trying to make that be the issue. It's just more, what is the actual intent of what's going to happen on the dock? The river is already exploited beyond belief. The last thing we need is more access to it that way. I know there's only so much you can do, but conservation to me is the biggest thing that I'm after. We've already ruined the kingfishery across the board. It's not one user group that's done that specifically, and Mother Nature's throwing stuff into that as well. So again, my concern is what's taking place with the dock. So anyway, thanks.
All right, we'll see if anyone has any questions. Bring up a good point, though. Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah, just one question. Last year, this dock was available for guides to use, right? No. It was not?
Not their dock, no.
Not at all?
No, because Steve didn't have it as a,
Okay.
There wasn't any guides working out of it.
Okay, so, all right. My impression is that theme and theory would continue, but you raise a good point. Thank you.
Dock space is very hard to come by on the river, and without naming names, there's dock space available for rent on Beaver Creek, which is against the rules. So that opens the door up if there's a new dock, and it's like, oh, what, 3 boats can fit there? So.
Any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Greenberg.
Just out of curiosity, what did State Park say about it?
State Park said that they are as least funded as they've ever been almost in their existence. They're only going to have 1 ranger on the river when they supposedly should have 4. And that docks on Beaver Creek are almost at the very bottom of their list of enforcement things, which is incredibly, it's sad that there's only going to be 1 ranger. They say that they're going to have someone extra for July, but that's a tragedy for the most busy river in the state, that we have 1 person that's going to be policing it.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to let you guys know really quick. Unfortunately, we were only able to hear maybe about 10% of that just because of audio. So yeah, if there's any follow-up questions, we were not able to hear anything that he had to say.
Okay, we'll definitely, I think that'll be a question that we'll come back to you with when we're done, for sure.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you.
We're aware of the issue. I think for other public testifiers here, if you want to take a seat at the back table back here and use one of those mics, they'll probably work a little bit better.
All right, so now you have new marching orders. Whoever wants to come up and testify, they can go sit down at the big boy chairs in the back. So whoever wants to go next.
And just be sure to press the button so you see a red light at the top of your mic. No.
I'm Christy Hudson. I also live on the street. I'd like to welcome the Lovejoys. And also, we are kind of looking into the same thing. As for the dock space, I believe that's private over there because Bly has his spots over there, and that got put on this side. My property ties in with that property somehow, whereas I'm allowed to use dock space supposedly, although I haven't had a boat to use dock space, so that hasn't been an issue for me. But I hope that this gets let in. They're amazing people. They're going to be a great asset to the street. I help take care of it during the winter for them, make sure everything's okay, as I do help out a lot down the street because I'm there full time. So I don't really have anything, just all positive, onward and upward.
Great. All right. Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Pikes.
And are you planning to reside in the area, or did you say you're?
I do reside in the area.
And you plan to in the future?
I'm not going anywhere.
Oh.
I live on the corner.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Anyone else? You know the rules.
Ron Rogalski. I live on actually Ames Road, but I'm right on the edge of Angler, right there on Beaver Creek. Some good comments here. I would first of all like to thank all of you for what you're doing and your volunteer service and stuff, and welcome to the new people. There's some new people on this board. Some of the old people have seen me many times. Welcome to Benjamin and Kathleen. It sounds like this is going to work out well. In the past, this property has been managed fairly well. There was one or two issues going back in time, a good long time ago, but Steve managed it, things went through, and that property has been managed, as far as we can see, well. You also know, those people who have been around and managed or examined this stuff, that there is other conditional use permit issues down in that area. And that is the biggest concern that we've had as things change and things go about. One thing I absolutely commend the city and the commission for doing is, when things change, make somebody put in for a new permit. Make them tell you what they think they're going to do and what they're going to do. Now, I know you've got some written comments of people who are looking for more specific restrictions on these permits, and that is one of the ongoing things that has gone in the past. And since I've got my 30 seconds left, minute actually, but one of the things that has happened in the past, and before this commission, and actually before appeals at the city council, is things have been denied, things have been rejected, and yet the people go on to do those very activities in violation, if you will. And that is one of the ongoing things we've had discussions with the city over the last, X number of years, is how do you enforce these things? How do you keep people from not doing the things you want? Now, back to the positive side of this, is it sounds like they intend to do a very good thing with this property. We welcome them to the community, and we'll certainly keep an eye on those things. The stuff brought up by Greg with the dock has been an ongoing issue. The activity, this deal, and it's been exacerbated with the change in the king salmon regulations, and now everybody's concentrating on reds, and what that's turned into is a nonstop taxi service on the creek and with people going on, and that's a concern we share with him on what's that dock going to be used for. Even though you're not guiding off of it, by technical definition, if you are hauling people, if you are hauling people out of your dock out to go red fishing, you're guiding. And so that's a thing that we deal with in Charisma and the parks, and we're trying to work on that. So thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah. Did I understand from a previous testifier that the permit that's actually required is by the state does not allow rental of that dock for any purpose? Is that my understanding, or did I not hear correctly?
I believe that to be technically true. I'm sorry? I did. Oh, I believe that to be true. However, just like the city has limited teeth and limited enforcement ability, the parks are under extreme financial and now personnel. Jack Blackwell is retiring next week, so he's gone. His number one person, Pam, is leaving, and she's the one who manages all those docks and all those permits. So we are at somewhat of a uphill battle within parks and running out of the river center.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as it is, what I've found with conditional use permit is a lot of the complaints, a lot of the violations of the conditional use permit are revealed through observation, through public complaint, through people saying that the permit is not being abided by. Would that would be a trigger for surveillance? Would you think that would be true?
That's correct. And one of the problems is, or one of the challenges is, who's going to surveil? The city doesn't really have anybody. Pam doesn't have a staff. The police, are frustrated with having to deal with that. The rangers, like you said, we're down to one ranger for the river. They've lost 3 in the last year. And now with Jack leaving and the rest of the thing, it's, we haven't had a meeting yet, but we don't know quite what's going to happen with Parks, River Oversight, and, Charisma is the Special Management Advisory Board. That's my tie into the thing.
So do I get from your comments that you're a member of an organization that helps surveil the river or give guidance as to its use? Is it Charisma or is it something else?
Correct. I'm actually the president of the Charisma Advisory Board.
All right, so you'd be in a position to advocate for more surveillance of the whole river.
Oh, we have been. Trust me, Commissioner.
Okay.
It's just,
right.
it's all money. It's
Well,
why
yeah,
they lose their rangers.
But the intent and
parks
effort
has
is
no
there,
money.
and
the
thank you.
intent is there. They all have good intentions and good efforts, and over the past couple of years, they have done a lot. But it's just, yeah.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else? 2023-04. Anybody on Zoom?
If there's anyone on Zoom that would like to testify, you can unmute it this time.
Yes, I would. I'm Jim Richardson.
All right, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. Commissioner Twait, Commission members, my name is Jim Richardson. I'm two doors upriver from this property. I would like to echo the welcomes for the Lovejoys. They seem like nice people. And as I said in my letter, that this hasn't been a real problem in the past, and we would be delighted if we don't have problems in the future. I've been dealing with conditional use permits in this area for 32 years, I'm sorry to say. And I've come to the position that a little caution up front is a lot better than years of regret and problems. And the city doesn't have a great history of fixing difficult problems under conditional use permits. And problem permits within Rock's Throw of this area are 1005 Angler Drive, 1015 Angler Drive, and 1050 Angler Drive, where some misrepresentations occurred and something what I would refer to as Operation Creep might occur and has occurred. And those were things that were listed on the second page of my letter. All of those things and those points have been problems by adjacent conditional use permits. Unfortunately, the Lovejoys will find this out pretty fast because they're in the zone that's going to be subject to some of these effects. So I'm requesting that it's easier to specify what's allowed and what's not allowed in the permit rather than have some group come down 5 years down the road and try and guess what the people that approved this had in mind. And gee whiz, all these things that are now occurring, if what happens is what the Lovejoys described, we're delighted about that. That hasn't been a problem in the past. I don't think it will be a problem in the future. And we would welcome them to the river and encourage you to approve this permit. But my caution is that I would like it if you would put some boundaries on this to save you and future commission members the problems that we've come up against. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions? All right, looks like there are none, so we appreciate your testimony. Anyone else? Looks like we do not have any more. I want to check with the applicants and see, after we switched microphones, were you able to hear the testimony?
Yes, everything was much better. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and then I guess before we close the public hearing, I'll give you guys any time you need to rebut anything or clarify anything that maybe came up.
Yeah, I want to also thank each and every one of you for coming out and contributing to this meeting. It means a lot to us. To the first gentleman that we didn't hear much, I think caught about 10% of it, right? I believe it was the first gentleman, but about the dock use and conservation, we have full respect for that and the river and the salmon species. From my standpoint, from that dock as well, being run from a guide business previously where it did have, potentially up to a dock full of 4 boats. This is going to be for our personal use only. Our one boat on there. It sounds like if Christy, who we share the dock with on the easement, ever decides to get a boat, but that to me alone improves conservation because we don't have 4 boats on that dock that are rushing out, every 30 minutes or hour and a half to go sockeye fishing. We've reduced it down to 1 boat to where we're not going to be there the entire summer like a guide would be. So that alone is helping, the riverbanks, the fisheries, and that's what we're about is helping conservation. And we'd like to see the king salmon, bounce back as well as other species. So.
All right, thank you. We're going to close the public hearing, and then if you can be available for questions, there still may be some that are coming your way. But we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission for discussion. Who would like to go first? Commissioner Fikes.
Yes, I have some questions for the applicant. Again, regarding the dock and also advertisement for short-term rentals, would you have any kind of consideration or stipulations in your rental agreement that pertains to the restriction of the dock, whether it be for a boat trailer or ferrying of passengers? Would that be a consideration?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, so the Airbnb listing or wherever we list the property will have exclusions of whomever the tenants are to have docking or moorage space for a boat, as well as not being able to be picked up from a guide from that dock. That would have to be from the guide's dock if they have one on Beaver Creek, or from just the public dock. So nothing would be allowed from our dock, and that would be listed in our listing.
And then again, on those same terms, would you be advertising any kind of acceptance for events, weddings, gatherings, or celebrations of any kind? Would that be an accurate description?
No.
Okay. And then
no, it would be really just for fishing.
Just fishing and just lodging, it sounds like. And then
Fishing, lodging, enjoyment, relaxation.
and so if anybody was to come down for the lodging and they also had a trailer or a motor home, they would not be able to park it there at your lodging, correct?
That is correct. That would be advertised in the listing that, that would not be tolerated as far as any, boats to be parked on there, as well as RVs or tents for camping or anything on the premises.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Chair Halstead.
Yeah, I think that in hearing the testimony and the concerns that typically are brought up on in this particular area, I think that this is a really good fit for the type of use that we'd really like to see in that area. It sounds like, the biggest concerns would be, fishing off the dock or motoring out the dock. And it sounds like that is not going to be an issue, or it seems more of like a personal use type dock. And I would be in favor of this. I think this is going to be exactly, like I said, what this area looks like. As far as enforcement goes, I know that's been a problem in the past, and I think I've had a renewed confidence in our planning director to successfully monitor the situation and be aware of it. And again, with the sensitive nature of the neighbors, I think they're aware that if they let us know, that's something that we're very much keeping an eye on. So I will be voting in favor of this.
Commissioner Glendenning.
Thank you, Chairman Twait. Yeah, I echo the sentiments of Vice Chair Halstead. I think we have some people who have researched their situation well. They have networked with the neighboring property owners. They've established themselves in the community already through contact, and I think we can rely on their application as being truthful and accurate, and I believe that they will be a welcome addition to the economy of our area. Thank you.
I'm going to, I guess, throw this out for a discussion item at least. A lot of times we've wished we could get these back when they are renewing if we were going to change anything or add hours of quietness or however we want to deem it important. Luckily, I think we have this one before us, and I think it's not in there as far as hours of when we want it to be quiet between this time and that time. And also, I think they've said they would like to have 6 people at a time, but it's not, again, specified in there, and I think we could put that condition on if we wanted to. I would like to hear if they have any objection to that. It was what they had talked about, so I don't think they will, but just so it doesn't turn into 8 or 10, if then they do end up with, an RV out there or something like that, it would just, I think, give us a little bit more opportunity to protect it a little bit in the neighborhood. And then a question for staff, I guess, would be regarding the dock. That's not something that is our job to police, correct? It's not something we can do with our conditions?
Thank you, Chair Twait, for that question. Correct. I'm not familiar enough to say that's something we police, but it sounds like it's the state that polices it. But if they're going to do any kind of level of commercial, if there's any transaction of that nature outside of lodging, they're in violation of the zoning district. I just want to be clear on that. So if they do anything beyond RVs for their guests, while it's not stipulated in here, they're still in violation because the zoning ordinance covers that. So we don't have to specify every little thing. The ordinance itself already covers a lot. So if you want to add on anything addition to, I'm happy to provide guidance, but our ordinance does cover most of these concerns.
And if in the future they wanted to come back and run a guide service out of there, they would just need to either modify this conditional use or create a new conditional use permit, correct?
Thank you, Chair Toy. Correct. Any change beyond lodging of this single-family dwelling unit, if they added on an additional dwelling unit and plan to use that as lodging, they should be coming back as an amendment because what you're approving is only this specific building. Once they start changing things and adding on, it should be amendment. I know that may not have been the practice in the past, but that's how I view it, and when I do my annual report, I'm looking at these details.
Okay, and then I guess a question for the applicant regarding the dock. I think that's the only thing that really looks like it's a hang-up at all, and it doesn't look like we have much control over that, but I'm curious if during the summer months when you have it rented, you might have a good old buddy that's just going to come up and you're going to let him stay there. He may want to use a boat out of there, which I think would be okay because it's your friend and it's a personal use. But I see that potentially the watchdogs might go, wait a minute, all of a sudden it looks like it's a guide service or they're doing something like that. Do you think that is a scenario that might happen, and what would be a good plan to let the neighborhood know that, hey, these are just my friends coming this week?
Yeah, no, that's a good question and concern. I think if that were to arise, hopefully we can all, be friendly enough with surrounding neighbors to let them know. And if anybody has any objections, I don't think it would be a deal breaker. There's a couple of public docks not too far away. Maybe it is an inconvenience for that person, that buddy that might want to stay there with a boat. But if push comes to shove, they trailer their boat to the local dock and put it in at that local dock.
Okay, thanks. All right. Vice Chair Halsted.
Concern about the quiet times. I would like to see, because I believe they said something about they would have that in their rental agreement as quiet times. Do we have, from other locations that we'd specified a quiet time, could we look up that same, I guess, time thing, so we're being consistent with it? Do we have the ability
I
to do that?
believe-
We need to take an Annie's to go look that up?
Yeah, maybe we should just take a real quick one. I believe it's like 11 PM to 5 AM, but I could be wrong. If we could just try to be consistent with some more other ones. Yeah, why don't we take 5 quick minutes? Thank you. All right, we are back on the record, looking for some information. Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair Twait. So after researching in the last 4 CUPs for cabin rentals and bread and breakfast, it's been consistently quiet hours from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. So those are the hours.
All right, so then I guess I would, before we make that motion, see if the applicant has any strong disagreement with that, or if they're okay with those hours.
Yes, we are okay with those hours. I kind of assumed it was 10 p.m. and then, you know, knowing how early fishermen get up and go fishing, wasn't sure what the morning time hours were, but yeah, it would be no problem with 10 to 6.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Halsted.
So I would like
welcome. I guess while we
to,
Oh, go ahead.
Nope, I apologize. Just during the interim, my wife and I were chatting, and I guess just wanted to maybe bounce it off of you guys. You know, I know we'd said 6 people, with it being a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and we just kind of got to talking. And you know, if we had 2 different couples, a husband and wife, and both of those couples had 2 children that are smaller, putting us at 8 people, and I don't think that's really probably unrealistic in those circumstances. And really think that the property can accommodate that many. Wanted to maybe chat about that and make sure that up to 8 people would be accommodating if we had young children or anything of that nature.
Would you be okay with 6 adults? Leave it at that, and then if children follow along with that, then that's a separate thing. We could just say no more than 6 adults, with the stipulation they could have children.
I think that would be, yes, I think that would be fine.
Okay,
Thank
all right,
you.
we can come up
Kids
with
go
something like
free.
that, I think. Okay, Vice Chair Halsted.
so I would just like to make a motion to add an amendment in here to allow or restrict quiet hours from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Second.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? We good with 11? She said 10, right?
Was it 10?
She said 10, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I would, if we're staying consistent, my understanding being 10 to 6 o'clock then. So, sorry if I said that wrong.
All right, second agree with 10?
No.
No? Do we have someone else to second that then?
I'll second.
All right, discussion. Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah, we have to probably just think of a practical application of quiet hours. If someone gets up early in the morning to go silver fishing and they go out and maybe scuff their foot on the gravel and start their car quietly and leave, I don't think that would be a violation of quiet time, would it, as a practical matter?
Probably open to interpretation, but I wouldn't think so, no.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fikes.
Yeah, I think we're all reasonable adults here, and I think from the discussion I heard from the testifiers in the audience and those applicants online, I think it's been a robust discussion with previous complaints and concerns addressed, and I've already seen and heard some changes in the administration's adjustment to some of those. So I'm pleased to hear that, and I think that this particular applicant would be responsible enough to interpret quiet time as it is stated. So for those reasons, I'd be in favor of approving this application.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Commissioner Greenberg.
Yeah, I don't know, I guess my interpretation of quiet time would be just like noise that's not just ordinary for your daily operations type stuff, like starting a car or a boat or something like that. I think it would be more like loud music, or music and, socializing, that kind of thing. I think that would be what my understanding would be of that. So I think, starting a boat or a car, I mean, you can't stop somebody from going to work, They got to start their car. So I guess that would be my thought on that.
None of that rock and roll music. Gotcha. So maybe polkas would be okay. All right, so any other discussion on the amendment? If not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Costin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Halsted,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Glendenning,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard,
Yes.
Chair Twait,
Yes.
Commissioner Fikes. Yes. Motion passes.
All right. Main motion is amended. Any other amendments?
Do we make an amendment on the 6 adults?
Yeah, that's the next thing, if we want to do that.
Okay,
And like I said, we
I'll
want to
make an
just craft that, I think, so that we don't say, limit it to 6 adults, and then somehow we gotta, and their children, or something like that, just so that we don't say, okay, if there's kids, that's, but however we want to do that, yeah. Commissioner Woodard, go ahead.
I'd like to make an amendment that the occupancy is limited to 6 adults.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? Commissioner Fikes?
I just would be a little concerned on trying to pigeonhole somebody into that. On one, you leave up interpretation with enforcement. I mean, I get what you guys are driving at, but I mean, who's gonna go over there and check? At what point is it gonna become a concern? Is there 6 people here, but then 1 left at midnight, now there's only 5, but then 2 more showed up at 1 a.m.? I don't know. I'm just concerned about the enforcement side of it, I guess.
Vice Chair Halsted?
I would agree. I think the enforcement on this is going to be a very difficult issue. That being said, I don't think that's necessarily a reason to disqualify it. Yeah, 6 adults is very much open to interpretation and who's going to be there when. So, but if you're grabbing at straws for something, maybe that's something that you could get to stick in trying to deal with an enforcement type situation. So, it could be there and hard to enforce, but at least it's there.
Commissioner Fikes?
Perhaps an alternate consideration would be not to exceed 6 adults in a 24-hour period or a 48-hour period, but then again, you're getting back to when you're limiting their business operation. And I'm not sure that that's where the road that this application goes down. I think that's up to them. It's their property, and it's up to them to establish those rules. They've already established that they're gonna have a property management company do it, so. I mean, you can have a standard and you could say a guideline not to exceed, but again, I don't know how you're gonna enforce it, so. Whether it's 6 or whether it's 10 or whether you put it in the document, I don't see it as relevant.
Commissioner Greenberg?
I hate to say it, but what have we done in the past? Do we need to look?
Well,
In the interest of being standard and
I
fair,
don't know that we've done a very good job, maybe that's not the right term. Well, I don't know if we've done it very often where we've put that on. A lot of the public testimony that we've gotten is, this is your opportunity to kind of control the amount of what they, and limit it to what they're saying. And so I think that's where I'm coming from, is I think it gives us maybe a new boilerplate way to look at these things. And I think that with 3 bedrooms, it just makes sense that you could do the 6 adults comfortably. If you go beyond that, now some of the parking becomes maybe a deal at some point, and now you might have a tent or a camper out there, and I think maybe we can eliminate that. Now, I'm not saying that's what they're gonna try and do, but I think it just helps fix that. Commissioner Glendenning?
Thank you, Chairman Twait. Yeah, the enforcement is in the contract. They have 3 bedrooms. We can presume 2 adults. Most certainly, there would be children involved. And to try and have a census taker stay at the door when they check in, I don't think is what the intent of the work direction this commission should give. I think we should give them the respect that they're going to have in their contract, the stipulation of 6 adults for 3 bedrooms, and I'm sure children will be involved, and beyond that, I can't speculate into life's decisions among the occupants of the building. Thank you.
Good point. Commissioner Fikes?
Just, yeah, you can reasonably assume 3 bedrooms, but you can also reasonably assume when you're doing short-term rentals that you could have multiple third-generation families, mom, dad, kids, and what have you. So you could have a bed here in this room and a bed in that room, or you could run it all the way up to bunks in every one of them for 12. So, again, this year they want to do 6, but then are you holding them back for wanting to do something more? Or what happens when, like I say, they get a reservation and somebody's got more adults? So I would think maybe between 6 to 10 adults and cap it at that.
I think they said they were good with 6. I think we're good there, but,
Do you guys have just a moment for us?
if it was children, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that does bring up a valid point about multi-generational and, actually when we purchased the home, just one of the bedrooms had 2 bunk beds alone, which is, that one bedroom enough for 4 people in that one bedroom. So, I'm not going to object with that. I think that sounds very, very rational. Knowing that, you could have bunk beds, 2 bunk beds, a piece in all 3 rooms, and right there you're at 12 people. And gosh, you wanted to throw a hide-a-bed in the living room to where it's got a fold-out bed. We're not looking to throw this place into a party by any means, but yeah, we also want to be accommodating and don't want to limit, a certain type of family when we know we can accommodate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Greenberg.
I like the idea of being able to, account for the number of people, for spaces, just like as you mentioned, but I don't know if we have done that in the past, and I don't know that it's fair to pick up something that's not really standard for this particular permit. I think we should standardize it and come up with something that is a rule that we can apply to all of these.
Let me ask, and just as a person that has maybe some background, Ms. Mitchell, in the past, when you've ever dealt with conditional use permits, is this something in other jurisdictions that is a typical thing to do, or are we getting outside the lines a little bit?
Thank you, Chair Toit, for the question. With my experience with 4 other cities, it has been common practice to limit the occupancy. Typically, the practice is 2 per bedroom and then 2 potentially in the living space. Otherwise, you're just packing people like sardines, and is that how you want your city to run short-term rentals? So it's not unusual to add a condition on occupancy, but it doesn't typically distinguish between adults or children. It's just a flat number. It's a number of living people in there.
Thank you. Commissioner Fikes, your light was on earlier.
Yeah, that's why I just like the range of 6 or not to exceed as a description. So you can run it up to 6 humans, or you can run it up to 6 to 10 humans, so that you're not limiting them. Like I say, I just think it's their choice to rent out their property, and I just think it's an unfair burden that you're trying to put on them. Like I say, if they should have somebody, I think they've already testified that they have an intent to conserve and intent to be responsible. And I get that we've had issues in the past, but I think that perhaps that as we move forward, maybe with our short-term zoning potential that's coming down the road in April, that's something that we could look at a standard for. But to try and fit it into this conditional use permit, I just don't know.
Commissioner Glendening.
Yeah, I think we're starting to go down a rabbit hole, and there are large families in this world. We have to be, shall we say, sensitive to family groups. And I think the contract that they're going to establish with their customers will stipulate, will show the recommended or required a number of occupants. And I think we should let it go at that. Commissioner Fikes is onto something about a number 10, but there could be a larger family than that. So I think the 6 adults will work, and if there's more children with bunk beds or maybe sleeping on the couch or sleeping bag, I think that could be tolerated in the short term for a short-term lease. Do you hear me, Chairman Twait? No, you didn't.
I was getting some pertinent information in my ear. No, I'm sorry, but I was,
The clerk can play it back for you.
just please, all right.
I just have a question for the applicant. What would your desire be on this application, as this is going to be a starting point for you? Do you feel concerned to limit yourself to 6, or to run it up to 10, or just to leave it off completely?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it does restrict our business a little bit. I mean, putting it at 6 people, I mean, just in the small amount of time that we took a break, my wife and I jumped on Airbnb just to see what was available in the area. And I mean, I'm seeing a 1-bedroom little cabin with a loft that has advertised up to 8 people. Now, I mean, you're talking a place that's 600, 800 square feet, as opposed to our place at 1,600 square feet. And it's potentially advertised for more than we're going to be, allowed on our conditional use permit. So I do think that does restrict us. I don't think personally we would want more than 10 people in there. Yes, we might lose out on larger families, but I definitely think 10 people would be really the absolute max. Yeah, so that's kind of my thought.
Because we're thinking about wear and tear too, I mean, we don't want the house overrun with people to where it's just uncomfortable for people and they're trying to save money and cram a bunch of people in there. So we want to be reasonable as well, but we don't want to, I guess, restrict ourselves. So yeah, trying to just find that happy ground.
Commissioner Fikes.
So perhaps going back to amendment to say not to exceed 6 humans? Or 10 humans, sorry, 10 humans. 10 humans?
All right, well, we have a motion already we can withdraw the motion, we can vote it down. Whoever made the motion, if they'd like to withdraw it and change it, we can do
I
that.
was just thinking that.
Okay.
I'll withdraw that motion. I think they're advertising kind of what we're talking about anyway, and if they advertise it, it's going to guide people in the right direction.
All right, you don't have to withdraw the motion, but you can revise it with concurrence from the second. So just,
If we want to go down this road at 10 or whatever that number is, then we can just make an amendment to your motion or revise your motion. Or are we just wanting to let it go away altogether?
I think we should just let it go.
Okay, so then you would want to withdraw your motion, and then we need to get concurrence from the second on that as well? Yep.
I'll
Okay.
concur. I think that these are good ideas, and I think that we do want to have a consistent standard that we can apply across the board, so it's just not arbitrary.
Vice Chair Halsted.
Yeah, I think the main concern that we all have here is the, the potential for, over noise or over population of that, it becomes more of a party type zone or an event type atmosphere. And I think if we put a noise ordinance in there and we, some of the other stipulations that are in there are going to cover, I think, the concerns that we have. Again, it's on the renter or the owner to, specify how many souls they want in their location. So I think, again, for me, it just seems like this is a very hot topic and we're trying to be considerate of the neighbors, but we've already got other rules that would kind of cover the concerns that I would have for it anyway, so.
Okay. And then I guess something that we want to maybe also throw in as just a verifier, and that would be just that the septic system is on file with DEC as a 3-bedroom system, which is what the house is, but I want to just verify that we have a DEC certified septic system. If somebody would like to make that motion, we can discuss that if we'd like to.
Through the chair, I'd just like to make a motion as a condition of the permit that we add on a copy of DEC approval for the property.
Okay, for a three-bedroom system then,
For a
to
three-bedroom
match
system.
what is there, yeah, okay. We have a second?
A second.
All right, any discussion on that? All right, we'll call the roll on that, please.
Vice Chair Halsted?
Yes.
Commissioner Glendenning?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard?
Yes.
Chair Twait?
Yes.
Commissioner Fikes?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Costin?
Yes, yes.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, we have the main motion as amended before us. Any other amendments, discussion, or are we ready for a vote? It appears we are ready for a vote.
Commissioner Glendenning?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Woodard?
Yes.
Chair Twait?
Yes.
Commissioner Fikes?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Costin?
Yes, yes.
Vice Chair Halsted?
Yes, yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. There is a 15-day appeal period that you're probably aware of, so after those 15 days, if there isn't an appeal filed with the city clerk's office, then your conditional use permit will be granted. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time.
All right, I think we're ready to move on to item F2, Resolution PZ 2023-05, granting an amendment to a conditional use permit for the expansion of the assisted living facility on the property located at 701 North Forest Drive, parcel ID 043-21030 in the suburban residential zoning district. Can I get a motion, please? Vice Chair Halsted.
I move we approve Resolution PZ 2023-05, granting an amendment to conditional permit for expansion.
Have a second?
Second.
All right, staff report.
All right. Second public hearing item is a conditional use permit amendment. Applicant is proposing to construct an addition to the assisted living facility, which will consist of 15 specialized memory care units, 2 additional assisted living suites, and several amenities. The project is located at 701 North Forest Drive, located in the suburban residential zone, also in the comprehensive plan suburban residential, on an approximately 4.64 acre lot. The subject property was granted CUPs in the past for an assisted living facility. The first CUP was for Building 1, the building to the south. Later, a second CUP was approved for the second building. And with this third conditional use permit, it is to adjoin both buildings. And that's a rendering of it. And last year, your commission approved a transfer of the CUP to new ownership. Proposed addition will include, for the amenities noted, a development center, a beauty salon, a theater, performing arts center, a gym for physical therapy, a reception center, and most importantly, a memory care unit for individuals who are aging with the disease. So this proposal meets the development requirements, such as the setbacks. Since this is in the middle of the parcel, setbacks aren't an issue, parking and access. So now with the configuration, as you can see from the site plan, the parking lot is going to be cut off, and now you have parking in the front, which is to the east, and parking to the rear of the building to the west. The main parking will be the one to the west, and they are proposing access through the adjacent property to connect to Ponderosa. So that's a big thing for you to acknowledge. And then in addition to access, they're proposing a 10-foot right-of-way, one-way, which starts from the south and goes around the building from the rear and ends Prospect out to North Forest Drive to the north. I know it's hard to see, but you can see that in your packet. One of the conditions that staff is requiring is that they acquire the right-of-way easement on the adjacent property and the right-of-way to be a recorded easement of a minimum 60-foot width road. And parking is not an issue, as this lot is substantially pretty large. Parking requirement for assisted living is 1 space for every 2 beds. A total of 65 units will be the case, which will require 33 spaces, where there are approximately 68 spaces provided on this lot. While there is signage shown on this site plan in the package, signage is not part of the approval. It's a separate process that will be reviewed by planning staff. And so ultimately, I wanted just to show the landscape. This will be reviewed by staff during the landscape and site plan. Typically, this is not reviewed during the conditional use process. We are working with the applicant to address some fire access within the front parking lot. So this is it's conceptual, but pretty close to the final. Nothing substantially would change. And of course, if there are substantial changes, this will go back to your commission for review. So, as with all CUPs, there are 6 criteria that must be met. First being that it's consistent, the use is consistent with the purpose of the zoning in the zoning district. And staff finds that it's consistent considering there are 2 approved CUPs for assisted living, and this is really to expand and adjoin the 2 buildings and further expand services to the needs of the community. Second criteria is the economic and non-economic value. Staff finds that it would not be significantly impacting the surrounding neighborhood. A landscape site plan has been submitted and will be reviewed. And typically a site plan requires, an orderly and safe development. And that's what I'm going to be looking at when I review it. And with the proposed landscape, the applicant is trying to ensure that it's aesthetically pleasing and a buffer to the surrounding neighborhood as well. And if there is increased traffic, as you can see to the south, while staff has to really review and determine if that's feasible along that right-of-way, the 10-foot right-of-way to the south, I'm just not one to ask for landscaping if potentially the access might be impeded on. So as we review further, I'll make that determination appropriately. But I will do my best to require as much buffering as deemed necessary. And third criteria is the proposed use and whether it's in harmony with the comprehensive plan. It's suburban residential, and you have a lot of institutional, other commercial uses around the neighborhood. You have a church to the south, you have a subdivision as well to the south, and you have a vacant lot to the west and the east, and more residential uses to the west, and more residential uses to the east. So we find this compatible with the comprehensive plan, as this is just an expansion of an existing use that's been around for a while. And lastly, criteria 4, public service and facilities are adequate to serve the proposed use. The last time that your commission approved the second building, one of the requirements was getting that easement on the vacant lot to the west, a utility easement, which they do have in place to further expand those services to the building. And with this increase, that existing easement will continue to serve the needs for this property and for the expansion. And lastly, criteria 5, proposed use will not be harmful to the public safety, health, and welfare. So it's not changing the use, it's expanding the use, and there's a surplus of parking spaces that's already there. If anything, we have double amount of parking that's required for this use. So staff doesn't see the potential harm. And then lastly, criteria 6 usually requires that if these conditions, the first 5 criteria cannot be met, we can add additional conditions. And conditions 5 and 6 have been added because of making sure that one-way access is sufficient for traffic and that during the snow season, it will remain clear. That was one of the concerns from the building official. So that's why I've added condition 5 to maintain a safe and clear passage of the 10-foot vehicle access so it remains free of obstruction and obstacle created by snow removal or the depositing of snow. Snow removal must not be pushed onto another property. So I've added that the condition to address the concern when we have snow like this last year, how are they going to maintain that and make sure that that one-way access is open at all times? But I do want to share with you that right before this meeting, the applicant did provide an as-built survey, and they do have the minimum 20 foot from the south building facade to the fence line. Because my concern was the fence line might have been closer than 20 foot, even though the property line is at 20. So I want to share that with you. Staff went through the process of public notice. All the neighborhood within 300 feet were notified, and I did not receive any public comments. So with that being said, staff is recommending that your commission adopt the resolution approving the amendment to the conditional use permits with subject to the original conditions, nothing's changed there, and with the following conditions that staff has provided in the resolution. This concludes staff's presentation. If you have any questions, happy to answer.
All right, thank you. And we have an applicant or someone speaking
Should be online.
online.
Doug.
There you
Yeah,
are.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I want to thank Linda for the work that she's done on this. We've had the privilege to do quite a few of these facilities, and you've got a great catch. I hope you guys hang on to her. I think she was pretty clear about everything we're trying to get accomplished here. And if you live in Kenai, we've been serving this area now for over 10 years in the long-term care industry, and are owning and operating also Riverside, which is in Soldotna. And this particular location is going to be the only location that will be offering memory care from the city of Kenai for the entire peninsula. And just as a little educational background, we usually about 30% of the people that come to live with us in a senior care environment are normally pre-dementia and Alzheimer's. So this is not a subtle issue that we're suggesting here. This is an absolute need that we have. And I would say anybody that's involved with what we call elopement when it's 30 below zero, recognize that it's not an easy situation when people are struggling with this. So the memory care unit that we're proposing is not only going to be serving Kenai, but this is a greater peninsula need. I think Clint Hall did a really good job developing these facilities, but it is an absolute nightmare for us to try to function with 4 buildings on a campus when we've got 3 feet of snow in a parking lot, and we're trying to move staff and food and materials and activities safely across this environment. It's been a heck of an experience this winter. And so this connection that we're creating between these 2 buildings in reality is going to allow us to get friends to know friends better. We have individuals living in all these facilities that would love to be together, and I'm sorry, you just don't want to do that when you're in nightgown when it's that cold. And so allowing us to connect these buildings, and a lot of the amenities that Linda talked about are things that are just not existent. So we're not into warehousing people. And this facility right now has a lot of great rooms. We have a lot of great staff, but we're lacking a lot of the great amenities that seniors not only deserve but need. And Linda brought a lot of those up. Just to reiterate those, we have no exercise facilities. We have no performing arts center. We have no development center. We have no staff training centers. We have no common area where people can aggregately populate and watch movies and do other activities like that. And it's just, it's one thing to go and live in a home, and it's another thing to live in an environment where people are robustly interacting and doing things together. And we love to do that. And we are doing some of that, but we're restricted because we don't have a lot of these things we're talking about. I don't really have much more to say other than we need it. We're excited to do it. We have a great staff, and we love Kenai. And we hope you guys can see the wisdom behind what we're trying to get accomplished. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions you guys have relative to parking or access or other considerations that we've undertaken to put this together. Don does have the plans. These are ready to be permitted. So this is just not a concept. I think there's over 86 pages sitting on his desk right now with 2 full sets of plans to do this. And so that's about it. I'm open for questions.
All right, thank you. We'll open it up and get any other public testimony first, but then I'm sure there will be some questions coming back your way. So anyone that would like to, look at this, you know the program. If you can, just state your name and if you're a resident of Kenai or not.
My name's Sasha Fallon. I'm here in general support for the expansion of Aspen Creek Assisted Living. My mother-in-law is a resident there, as well as I work in the senior social service field myself. And so senior housing, it continues to be a top need for our seniors, senior residents on the Kenai Peninsula, as he stated. And there are just minimal housing opportunities for our seniors. It's an issue. And as he also stated, Aspen Creek is one of, well, it is the only assisted living facility on the Kenai, in the Kenai area. So it's, as Planning Director Ms. Mitchell stated, it's aesthetically appealing. It's a beautiful facility that fits into the community. The location is beneficial for family members to visit their loved ones there. I go there regularly. And I've witnessed and experienced compassionate, professional, and targeted care for several years by the current director, Renee, and I'm confident in her abilities to consider the residents in the area and provide the needed housing for our seniors. So what else did I want to say? She works well and establishes relationships with other local agencies to collaborate services at the location of the facility, and the location of the facility is prime for this purpose. So I just wanted to come in tonight and give my general support, and I hope that you guys permit this zoning. Thank you.
All right, we'll see if anyone has any questions for you. It doesn't appear so. Thank you. Anyone else?
So my name is Brad Hauser. I'm the operations officer at Aspen Creek. I live in Anchorage, and I oversee some of the facilities we have both up there and down here. I just want to add a little bit to this, just to summarize. We have in the peninsula, there's roughly about 1,100, or there's about 11,000 seniors over 65 years old here. This is a problem that's not going away, and it's going to get worse because we know that we know that Alaska's aging. The Alaskan census is definitely showed this. We're going to see a growth of 500% over the next 25 years of people 85 and older. And we know from Columbia University that 10% of these people over the age of 65 are going to have some form of dementia. And as you guys know, we've all have family members that may or may not have dementia or a form of it. It becomes very difficult for us as kids with our parents to deal with them, and we need facilities. And the most important thing about these people is that they recognize, they have long-term memory. They remember family, and oftentimes they don't remember us. And so keeping these people, if we don't have facilities here in the peninsula for these 1,100 people, they're going to develop dementia. Where do they go? We're going to ship them off to Anchorage, maybe down to the lower 48. But where's their family? Where are their friends? They're here. We've had people in this facility, like Doug said, we are separated right now in our facility between 2 buildings. And it's a life-threatening situation for a senior to go across an icy parking lot to visit their friends. I've interviewed some of these people, and they said that it is, I have a friend over there, but I can't see her until summer. And that's a sad situation. We want to bring those people together. Not only that, but we want to keep our seniors, our family members here in the peninsula close to their families, because they want to come visit. And if we don't have enough rooms, where are they going to go? Us here, will not be able to take care of our family members at our homes. So we need facilities like this. This is the tip of the iceberg. And hopefully we can come back to you at some point in the future and say, we'd like to do more because the need is definitely there. But we want to keep our seniors here right now. And this is why we're doing this proposal and bringing this facility to the peninsula, is so that we can have these seniors stay here and give them a quality of life, because they could go on for 10, 20 years, but we want to give them a quality life here, and that's our purpose. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Fikes?
Yeah, so you brought up with the parking and the construction, limiting it to one access, I think is what the director, is that correct? If there is just access going to be off of Forest, or is there going to be access off of the right-of-way in the back towards Ponderosa? Can you clarify that?
Thank you, Commissioner Fikes. There will be two access, one off of North Forest Drive, with the access on North Forest Drive will be a one-way. Well, I guess there's two access off of North Forest Drive, because you have access to the front parking, and then one access, a one-way, to loop around the building and coming back out to North Forest Drive. And then the second main access will be from the rear, which will then loop to Ponderosa. So they'll have to acquire right-of-way easement from the vacant lot to then access Ponderosa Street.
That's my concern. You're coming into a residential cul-de-sac that typically is used for snow storage, isn't it?
Well, it's not a cul-de-sac, it's terminates, but it's not, it's platted as a through street, I believe.
Okay, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Correct, Commissioner Fikes and Chair Twait. It is platted to be a through street. It's just whether that vacant lot develops it or not. So this developer or applicant will be developing this road and now opening the development potential for these vacant lots that doesn't have the road access.
Okay, that sounds good. And so then back to the applicant, I guess that's my concern with increased traffic, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be a main entrance for your facility. What is your plan for entering and exiting through that area? Because you see my concern right now, it's a neighborhood, and I understand it's going to be increased development and a full-on road, but you're still going in and out. As you do with North Forest, I get that, but I guess there's more density on Ponderosa, and you're going to see more cars and whatnot parked. So I guess I just was, as you increased your volume, your visitors, that kind of thing. So I guess I was just looking maybe more detail.
So do you want me to answer this, or do you want to take that to Doug and let him answer this? Give it either.
Dealer's choice, yep.
Doug, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
You know, I'll take it, because we've spent a lot of time visiting with Linda about this one. We have a really, I'm hearing myself echo. Is that okay? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, thanks. So 90% of our use of that back lot is going to be staff. In fact, I'd say 95% of it. That's predominantly dedicated staff parking, which means we have control over directing how they access the project. The main road that's on the back there really is more of a fire access for emergency vehicles, food delivery, and then for our trash. So the same guys that are picking up the trash cans for the neighbors on Ponderosa are going to be the same guys that are picking up the trash for us at our facility. I don't see us as we grow using it predominantly for public access. In fact, the parking lot that's on Forest is predominantly designed for medical professionals, visiting families, individuals that are dropping off mom or picking them up to do tours, other people that are coming to visit. So I don't know if that helps clarify that for you, but we're really not at Ponderosa as a primary access. That's an emergency access only.
And that sounds great. So then also your snow removal plan would be in that area again, because obviously you're increasing your parking area. So Is that a concern? It sounds like you guys had this discussion.
Yeah, we spent actually quite a bit of time visiting with Linda about this, and in fact, originally we didn't have the one-way roads, and that's why we created those one-way roads so that we could limit the traffic flow through Ponderosa. So we recognize the issue with snow removal. We've talked about that on both the north and south entrances, and we've got quite a bit of property out there that's not developed yet where we plan to stage our snow removal for both parking lots.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, my only other concern would be about landscaping, but it sounded like in the report that's not the topic for tonight.
It's on, there's a landscape plan, a preliminary one anyway, so, yeah. All right, so I have a question for you, and I hear different numbers, and they're all huge numbers as far as what the waiting list is to get in there now. Can you just touch on that? I mean, is it as bad as I hear, or is it high in demand as I hear?
It is. Let's just say this. We opened up, you saw in our site plan, we have buildings 3 and buildings 4 in the back. They have 7 beds in there. Those are designated right now as memory care. We just got our permits to open those up as a memory care unit. We haven't advertised those, and we are full. We've got people, even in our facility today, our facilities, both in Soldotna and here, that need memory care support, and we have nowhere to put them. The thing about memory care is, we have to, I don't want to say lock them down because that has a bad connotation, but we have to protect them from wandering. And our memory care units have special devices on the doors to be able to keep them corralled. We don't have that if they're in a straight assisted living facility. So yes, we have the ability, people are coming to us, we have more need than what we can even fill, we can even house right now. So these people are living in our assisted living, and we have to watch them in our assisted living because that's what they are. I interviewed a family here just recently, and they said, I know my mom qualifies for memory care. We're just thankful that we can get in here and that you can take care of her because we can't. We've hit our capacity at home. So yeah, the demand is definitely there.
Okay. And then with the additional size and rooms and all that, I know how hard it is for me to try to find a carpenter. It's impossible. What is your staffing ability? Are you going to be able to, is that an untapped resource that you got plenty of them, or is that a challenge for you?
So great. I'm glad you asked the question. I'm going to pass this to Doug. This is Doug's specialty, and he will be overseeing this because he has a construction background. But I'll let him talk to that.
Yeah, I left my mute on because I was laughing. You're right on target there. Yeah, we have talked a lot about it. So yeah, there's going to be a challenge there. We've seen this not only in this state but in the lower 48 too. All of us hate interest rates, but it is slowing the development industry down. We don't develop. Well, let's just put it this way. We're excited that it's slowing down because it helps us do what we need to get done here. So we have talked about that. We've interviewed a lot of framers. They want a lot of money right now, and we're trying to talk them out of it. So that's as far as I'm going to go with that one, but we're going to build it.
Well, I would like to talk to you about that, but my question really wasn't about that. It was when the building's complete, your staffing challenges. Do you have enough workers? Is that a challenge in that industry as well? That was my.
Go ahead, Doug.
No, I was just going to make this comment. We do have staffing challenges. I will tell you that our one of the main reasons we want to combine these buildings is to, let's just say, limit our staffing. Right now, we've got meals being cooked in one building and taken in carts across to the other building. We've got an activity director in one building and then trying to gather everybody to go to the next building. When we combine these facilities and everybody's coming to one place, it's going to be a lot less work. So yeah, we'll need some more staff for the memory care, but right now operationally, it's a lot cleaner system for us for our staffing.
Okay. But there will be a net gain as far as number of people employed then when.
That
when
is
you're-
correct.
Okay.
Probably in the magnitude of around 15 employees.
Okay, which is huge for our community as well, so I think that's a great
Absolutely,
thing,
and we
yeah.
also realize that staffing's a problem everywhere. It doesn't matter, I mean, this is not isolated to Alaska or even Kenai, but we do realize that what we're gonna have to do as a company is sink an investment into training these people. We've got to get people brought up in this healthcare field because this is only gonna get bigger. And if we don't start doing that now, that's gonna be a problem for years to come. So we see ourselves being an active participant in training these people that come out of the high schools and even getting into the high schools, which I'm trying to get into now to make sure that happens.
Okay, great. Commissioner Fikes.
So on that same note, I've watched you guys build the first one and the second one, and now you're talking about a third. Just out of curiosity, do you guys have additional land for expansion?
Doug, you want to take that?
Yeah, do you want to sell us some?
Well, it sounds like you got a great location, and I know the city's got some.
No, we've got a roadmap for the balance of this 4.65 acres, but we're not ready for that yet. Right now, we're mostly concerned about the memory chair. We want to stay focused on what we need to get done right now. We do have an expansion and a public hearing in 2 weeks in Soldotna. We'll be adding on to Riverside this spring. So we are expanding that facility, but yeah, who knows where we'll be in 10 years, so keep your ears open.
Commissioner Greenberg.
Yeah, I had a question back to the extension of that easement. It says here it's going to be paved. Is that going to be, the maintenance, is that going to be paved all the way through? And is the maintenance going to be part of, is that going to be accepted by the city for maintenance? And will the utilities be extended underneath that?
Ms. Mitchell.
Through the chair, Commissioner Greenberg, we just are asking for them to get the dedicated 60-foot wide easement, and at a minimum, we require them to pave at least a minimum 30 feet since it's not their primary. And the utility easement was acquired back when the building number 2 was acquired, so the utilities are already in place. And if they were to do additional, they have the easement rights already. So, did I answer all your questions? What was the second part?
No, yeah, I was thinking water and sewer, because there's a lot of, there's a lot of space there that, say that gets developed later on. How is the water and sewer going to come through to service potentially any subdivisions that could pop up behind that area?
That's a really good question. And as we look at the building plans, we look at it comprehensively with the building official and Public Works when they do acquire the easement for the right-of-way. We'll determine what's the best route for drainage. I know that's something that we haven't reviewed in the past thoroughly, but it's something we're really considering now because it has been an issue. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in regards to that easement. Not that I can think of right now.
So to clarify, we're not talking about Ponderosa extension, we're talking about the easement on the other property, correct?
No, I'm talking about the Ponderosa extension.
Ponderosa, okay.
Yeah.
Is that what you were talking about as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. I just wanted to make sure
Come
we were all
on
on the same
over.
page. Okay. Well, I just
Sorry.
wanted to make sure we weren't just talking about that little extension off the other property, so.
No,
Commissioner
I was
Fikes.
just, it's just there could be development further, to the northwest of that. And should they require water and sewer, would that, building sort of a paved area that doesn't have that underneath, would that make that difficult in the future, is I guess my question.
I'm not sure if I can answer that since roads and utilities are not my expertise, but I think when development on the future lots are brought up, staff does work closely with the applicants to do what's the shortest route and less damaging to the environment when they do these developments and needing extensions and connections to the existing sewer and water. In terms of, I actually would like to pull up one of my supplemental slides because I did include the utility easement that was a requirement of the last conditional use amendment for building number 2, so that you kind of have an idea with this utility easement, and we're asking the applicant to get a right-of-way, since it's a little bit unclear to staff and legal team that it included right-of-way access. So, it's one of my supplemental slides. Yes, please. I figured this might be brought up, so.
I think in the past, we've had basically driveways and right-of-ways, and that didn't include extending like water and sewer, which, you know, might inhibit development in the future.
Mm-hmm. So, let's go through all this real quick. All right. So, I know it's really hard to see, but this was the plat that was required with the second approval of the second building. The middle that you see through the track itself is a 10-foot utility easement, as well as what you see to the far left or to the west of the property, you see the easement that was required to be recorded. And in further detail, this is what that recorded utility easement. And so it's already in place under there. And right now with this condition added to this amendment, we're asking a right-of-way easement and to be consistent 60-foot width all the way through.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I was just thinking if it was going to get paved and, you know, should the water and sewer also go underneath?
Yeah, and it's my understanding that it's there because they had to connect it from the back when you approved building number 2.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Fikes?
Kind of on those same lines, I guess, my curiosity is what the plan is for any kind of lighting, because again, you're backing up to a residential, so I understand it's a secondary parking area, but is there any consideration for lighting in the parking area and how that might impact the residents?
So I won't answer that because I haven't reviewed the building plans in depth and whether they have lighting plans, so hopefully the applicant or...
Yeah, I'll let Doug speak to that. He just had, he drew up the plans or had these drawn up.
Yeah, we do have lighting on the parking areas, but there is no lighting that's considered for this driveway we're talking about. So that's a separate discussion, and I don't really ever see us using this. In fact, if the city wanted to, we could even make this a gated entry that has a Knox box on it for the fire department or for the individuals that want to use it. I don't really see Ponderosa, this driveway that we're talking about, as something that we really want to be using for our day-to-day operation. So we can light it, but if it's an easement only, and you're kind of looking at futuristically if this ever develops into lots and you guys want a dedicated right-of-way where the city actually takes over the maintenance and the long-term care of it, that's a different discussion. That's where we don't have an easement any longer. You guys own the dirt that's in this right-of-way. So right now, there's a third party that owns the dirt. We have an easement that gives us access to maintain the utilities that are under the dirt right here in this description, this utility easement for the 14,914 feet. But the language that's in it is arbitrary. So as Linda mentioned, both her attorney or your city's attorney and our attorney have reviewed it, and it's not clear that we have a right-of-way access. So we need to get together with the neighbors and clean that language up and get that organized, and we're more than happy to pave this and modify it. But as far as lighting that driveway, we'll do it if you want us to, but I don't think it would be a good idea. We don't plan to use it at night.
No, I would not encourage you to light it. I don't think the neighbors would like it. That was what I was asking about. And also it tends to get everybody's attention in the neighborhood when you start gaining access and knocking trees down and then throwing up lights in the parking area. So that was kind of where my concern is, but it sounds like you guys have conservation in mind, so I feel comfortable about that, that it's not going to be a primary, it's not going to be a heavily lit area, it's going to be considerate to the neighborhood, so it sounds like it's going to be a good fit.
Okay. I think we can set you off the hot seat and see if anyone else wants to testify.
Please ignore that. Good evening. My name's Renee Bryant, and I'm the director for Aspen Creek Kenai and Aspen Creek Riverside. And I just wanted to add to a few things that I heard discussed. One is the blessing that we will have to be able to have our people not only have this beautiful home with these different amenities that they don't have now, the gyms, the extra activity spaces, but the one that they're most excited about is having a shared dining room. Being able to sit down and share meals with their friends that live across the parking lot. That's our number one blessing. The second one is the memory care. I have been working since 2018 to have a memory care opened in Kenai. That's where I cut my teeth in senior living. I love memory care. I love the temporary memory cares that we have now, but it's not enough. We are overran with people wanting to get into those secure environments. The permanent memory care that would be added here has things that those smaller homes can't have just because of space confinements there, like life centers, where they have things to help engage them even more, keep them active, keep them in touch with where we are today, and to just live a happier, better life. And that's what we're looking for, is being able to, that's the big one, is being able to bring that memory care here. When I first moved here in 2018, it surprised me that we don't even have Project Lifesaver here. And a lot of people don't realize that, meaning that there is no real a tracking system, so to speak, that if our seniors with dementia get out and they are unsafe and don't have the awareness to find their way home, there's nothing to help track them or protect them. And that's what we're trying to do now, is provide a secure environment with a secure outdoor space where they can lead a full life, have plenty of things to do, lots of activities, and stay engaged with us and to get the care that they need. To answer another question that was brought up was how many people are on our waiting list, and that's a great question. Currently, today, I have 27 in Kenai, and I believe I had right at 32 for Riverside. That's our wait list. That's our seniors waiting to find a place to live where they can be safe and cared for, have meals every day, hot meals every day. That's what we're up against, and we're only starting into our silver tsunami. It's going to be worse, as we're all going to want to retire one day, and it's just getting more intense. I apologize, I went over time. I get a little passionate.
Great, you can go longer if you have anything else you want to add.
No, I'm good. I'll
Okay.
stop. I just
All
get
right.
a little passionate.
Commissioner Glendenning.
Yes, I have a question for you. Are your kitchen facilities going to be adequately expanded also for the new residents and the additional food service that you just proffered?
Absolutely,
Thank
sir.
you.
They will be there. We're getting new equipment, a bigger space, and not only are we having a bigger space, but we are getting to have one kitchen. Right now, we have two separate kitchens, and we end up preparing in one, carting across to the other, and then using chafing dishes to keep things hot while we serve. So it will be even better. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? you turn that on and go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I am Christine Smith, and I am the Life Enrichment Director at Aspen Creek Kenai. I also oversee Soldotna as well. I've lived here on the peninsula for 23 years. Just as Renee was mentioning about cutting her teeth, in this industry, I did mine as a licensed CNA, which I still hold that licensure today, at Heritage Place. I grew a huge passion for our dementia, which I'm going under the premise that we understand that dementia is an umbrella term, and then all the other types of memory care things fall underneath that. And I was very excited to hear both of them mention, as we know, it's very cold and it is winter, it's Alaska, and the concern for our residents that have dementia, having a safe place for them is very important. Meeting all of their activity needs, that is what I love to do, and I'm very blessed to have the opportunity to work where I do. The two buildings is very challenging with activities. We have to cart different things back and forth, and then as well as the number of residents that we have, you know, there is power in numbers. And when you have, as they were talking about, friends that have got to know each other during the summer, and now we have cold and blowing snow, and it's just not safe for them to go to the other building, it doesn't really, it doesn't help them to have that joy and that safe feeling as they would if they were with their friends. But I really appreciate everybody allowing me to speak this evening. If you have any questions for me, I'm available.
All right, Commissioner Fikes?
So I'm just curious, to the folks that are there, are they mainly full assistance needed or partial assistance, or what would be a better way to understand it? Do the folks that reside there, they come and go at their own leisure, or how does that all work?
Currently, we have a variety of residents. We have residents that do go and travel and live there. It's basically like an apartment for them. We have residents that need a one-person assist, residents that have a two-person assist. We cater to a lot of needs.
Anyone else? And I'll just say it now, but when someone else spoke earlier, I drive by there, live back behind that direction, and I sympathize with the struggle because I've driven by and looked and see people trying to push things back and forth, and I get it. I know there's a handful of other of us that live in that same general vicinity, probably have seen it too, so I understand that completely. So, all right, next person. Please.
Hi, my name is Jackie, and I'm the, what is my title? Clinical Director. Clinical Director for Aspen Creek and Soldotna. And just to kind of speak to mirroring everything that my colleagues have said tonight, from a training standpoint, the staff that we are lucky to have right now, when we're always recruiting, I feel like this is a tough field. But it's active recruitment, it's really going to be beneficial. The training is huge. Brad has tasked me with designing some of the curriculum for the training that we need for safe transfers and things of that nature. Speaking to that, those building accesses are going to be massive for part of our training too. The safe training and helping assist when they're in a wheelchair or a walker. So I just think that is going to have such a huge impact on staff as well. And knowing that these are going to be people in our community taking care of our elders. We owe them top-notch training, and we owe our elders this top-notch treatment. So I think this building design is certainly going to help every aspect of Aspen Creek. I don't know what I did. That's all I have.
All right, any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jackie, can I get your last name for the record?
Wade.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Ashley Nichols. I'm the assistant ED at Aspen Creek, Riverside, and Soldotna. I'm here to be a support to our Kenai facility. I want to say that the design and the layout is going to be exponential for physical therapy. We have in-house PT that comes in, and for them to be able to go from one side of the building all the way to the other side of the building through that division of the hall that's going to be added gives them a lot more room to be able to increase their mobility. And that's all I have to say.
Oh, I might have a question for you. So I have an aunt who just took a tumble this is back in Minnesota, but so she was in the hospital for quite a while. Then to get part of her physical therapy had to go into a long-term care facility. The plans are she'll then leave out of there and go back home. Do you have clientele that are there on post-hospital visit and then will then go home, or?
So we do offer respite care. We limit past 10 days or less, or 10 days or more, I'm sorry. And they do have home health agencies that will come into our facility and follow through with that physical therapy for them, taking them, building their strength back up until they're able to go home.
Okay, thanks. All right, now you can sit down. Or sit down again. All right, anyone else? Now there's just a few of you we're looking at here that didn't speak. No. So I doesn't look like anyone else wants to, so I don't know if there's anybody online. And I should check with Mr. Costin. You have any questions for anybody? I guess I kind of forget that you're out there. You good?
I do not.
Okay. All right, so I guess maybe just give either of you two, if there's any other thing you need to summarize at the end, or have we covered everything sufficiently, you think? Okay. Then I think we will close the public hearing then and bring it back to the commission for discussion. If there's any discussion. Vice Chair Halstead.
I think it's a great opportunity for us to improve our facilities that's available. Obviously, it's a growing need that these people are more than capable of filling. The facilities in the past have been a great addition, and I think it can only get better from what they were presenting. My only concern is that that Ponderosa Street is going to be a potential issue, just being a small road and not developed. But in the future, it depends. It sounds like they're not using it for a lot other than emergency services, so I don't really see that as an issue, and that's more of a roads issue than anything. So as that develops, that will be a moot point anyway. So I'm in full support of this.
If I could ask staff real quick regarding that, it was one of my questions, maybe it's a good time as any. With the noticing that goes on with the property owners within that proximity, how many of those on Ponderosa were notified? Did any of them fall into that area?
Thank you, Chair Twait. I don't know the exact number. So it's 300 feet within the project site, and everything to the north and east or west doesn't exist. So it's really the subdivision and the church. So approximately, I think, 25 notices were sent out, and staff didn't receive any public comments. I was honestly expecting some level of comments, which was surprising. And in the future, if this is generating more traffic than intended, we can definitely come back and revisit this and add some conditions to alleviate the impact to the neighborhood, because that's the intent of a conditional use.
Great, that was what I was looking for. Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. For increased traffic, do we anticipate that the clients in the facility will be driving, or would it be just the additional staff that would come and go from the property on a large capacity road?
Ms.
Could
Mitchell?
you repeat that question, Commissioner Glendenning? I just want to make sure I understood.
We're talking about additional potential traffic, okay? And my question is it anticipated that any of these clients actually will be driving, or that the impact would be just from the incremental increase of staff that would have access to an already well-developed, large traffic capacity road.
Let's just say this, I don't think anybody wants our residents driving.
You were going to say staff, where didn't you?
I almost did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's very few that come into our facilities that will actually drive. It will be the increase of staff, and like you said, some of the produce truck won't be able to get around to the facility using the one-way. We'll bring them in the back. But other than that, it's really just staff, and like I said, our staff they're used to accessing through the front today off of Forest. We don't expect that behavior to change whatsoever because it is a little bit longer to get around the other way, and they take the path of least resistance.
Okay. Yeah, I
Commissioner
live
Monday.
across the street in Woodland, and someday I might want to drive there, but
Just don't do it after hours.
Yeah, so I think you said also maybe the trash might come from back there, and that be the extent of it? Okay. While you're here, I got a question I would have wished I would have asked earlier. A handful of years ago, 15 now, I think, I was involved in building the active adult community over in Soldotna and Mountain Rose over there. And so I learned a little bit about how active adult into assisted living. Are you guys just doing assisted living? Because it seems like the active adult thing is a common, what you're talking about, the elderly, getting more elderly population.
You're hitting on its head. And if you look at it, the care of seniors, there's a continuum of care. They start off, relatively like independent living, and it just progresses through assisted living, and then there's a form of memory care, and all the way to skilled nursing. In the state of Alaska and here in the peninsula, we just have a shortage across the board, and this is, I'm sure you're going to see initiatives in the future come up about this because this is a critical. They're calling it an epidemic that is coming, and we're doing nothing about it. So yes, those are a little bit different than what we do. We're strictly assisted living, where we assist in their daily living exercises.
Okay, thanks. All right, Commissioner Woodard.
Well, I'm very familiar with this facility. My mother lived there for 5 years before she passed, and I can attest to pushing somebody across from one building to the other, and she was little. I can't imagine having to do it, and plus the food coming across too. That was getting to be quite a chore. But anyway, I'm for this. I would love to see that. I wish I could have experienced that crossover there. So I'm all for it.
Very good. Commissioner Greenberg.
Yeah, it seems like this is a great and necessary step to address real community need and a great project. I guess my only concern, again, is that Ponderosa Street extension. So what looks like now is an easement, someday could potentially be a right-of-way and with utilities and stuff, and this might be the time to address that. So.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Yeah, I would, again, just say that the need is huge. We are all living older, and I'd like to go there for a week, I think, and just rest. It sounds like a great idea. So, but, there is that. I hate to, I'll let you guys get out of here, but you also talked about a hair salon. I was curious about that. Will there be somebody with that many people that will be a full-time position, or is that going to be somebody that comes in from outside, or?
No, we have an independent contractor who comes in. She also has a salon in town. She charges a discounted rate and comes in a couple of days a week, and that's really sufficient. The best thing is with the expansion, she's gonna have an ability to do something, like doing a perm in our little bitty salon right now is difficult. But now there'll be a little bit more room for her. We're also hoping to get someone from the community who does nails to come in and do manicures and pedicures, so we can have a little bit more of that experience, because I like those things, and I'm gonna like those things
Yes. Great, thank you. All right, I think we might be done. Commissioner Halstead's got a smile on his face for some reason. But, so, yeah, I think if our discussion is done, we are ready to call the roll, please.
Chair Tweet,
Yes.
Commissioner Fikes,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Costin,
Yes, yes.
Vice Chair Halsted,
Yes.
Commissioner Glendenning,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard,
Yes.
motion passes.
Did I vote? I don't think she called me.
Take my rally crew
Did you get Chairman
Megan,
Twait?
I didn't get, you didn't ask me to vote. What? Yeah, you did. Were you? Maybe I do need to.
They do have memory care.
Maybe you did. I think you did. Never mind. We need a 5-minute break. I do know that. But I will say that there is a 15-day appeal period that an affected party can file. If no one has filed one in 15 days, your conditional use permit will be granted, and then you can move on with the building permit and carry on. So thank you very much. Okay, we are back on the record, and under G, unfinished business, we have none. Takes us to item H, new business. H1 for action approval, recommending city council approval of the student representative policy number 20.100. And before we get a motion, we're just going to go to Ms. Sainer, and she will walk us through this.
Thank you, Chair Twait. Apologize for not being there tonight. So these are being brought to you for recommendation to the council because the policy, if adopted, will affect the Planning and Zoning Commission. And can everybody hear me fine? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. My phone's doing weird stuff tonight. So currently we have two policies on the books, one for the City Council and one for the Parks and Recreation Commission. The proposal here would repeal both of those and put one policy in place for student representation to all boards, commissions, and councils of the city. The new policy as proposed expanded the scope and purpose to explain why it's important to have a student representative. The previous council policy required students attend Kenai Central High School. This policy would propose that they are a senior, junior, senior in good standing at a school within the city of Kenai. In 2020, the Parks and Rec Commission did a thorough review of their policy and amended it to allow students from other schools besides Kenai Central High School. The qualification amendments to this would be that for city council members, the student would have to be a resident of the city. And it was drafted to allow non-city resident students that attend schools within the city limits to boards and commissions because our current code allows for non-residents to sit on our boards and commissions. And then it also added a preference will be given to students who are active members to school leadership groups. And this is because the primary role of a student representative is to report to their body what's happening at the school and what's happening with the city and how it affects the school, and report back to the student body what's happening with the board or commission that they're sitting on. So a person in that leadership role would be more apt to be able to communicate those things to the student body. There is limitations. So currently the student representative is a 2-year term, and this will reduce it to a 1-year term. And the reason for that is when a student signs up for this, they know what their schedule's like that year. What we see is in the second year, a lot of times their schedules conflict. And another major change is we would be putting the student not in the rotation of the roll call order, but at the end of the roll call order. And that's because oftentimes it's a controversial subject, and we want that student to be able to let the body make the decision and have their voice last as advisory only. And I am available for any questions on the policy as it's written.
Okay, so procedurally, we want to make a motion and then we can edit this thing, or how? What's the best way to go about if we have any thing we'd like to add or change?
You can, it can go either way. So you can make motions recommending that the student council policy include different provisions that are there, and then move to recommend council adopt the policy with your recommendation, or you can put the motion on the floor to recommend adoption and then propose recommended amendments.
Okay, that's one I think we're most familiar with, so maybe that's what we would do. So, Vice Chair Halstead.
Yeah.
Just clarification, did I understand that correctly, that you changed some of those policies to allow additional, outside of the Kenai Central High School, would that include like homeschooled students as well?
Homeschool, my understanding is we also have this would have connection, homeschool, the alternative school. My understanding is we also have a Catholic school in the city, so I would have to do some homework to make sure that we are sending out the applications to all the schools in the city, and then the mayor would review and make his recommendations for appointment.
Okay, so your intention is to be all encompassing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we need a motion. Vice Chair Halstead.
I move we approved City Council approval of Student Representatives Policy Number 20100.
A second.
Okay, we have a second. All right, now we can take a look at this. If we want to deep dive on any of it, we wouldn't have to. We could recommend it as is. I guess we're just looking for discussion at this point, and if there's any proposed changes. Commissioner Glendenning.
Thank you, Chairman Twait. Yeah, as I read through it, I think that it's the boxes in pink that tie us back to a certain section of the policy. I think it adequately represents and addresses the concerns that I've heard over time on how to improve this policy, and I'm wholeheartedly ready to vote yes on it now.
Okay. Commissioner Fikes.
Yeah, I concur. I think it was a good suggestion to limit it to 1 year of a term for a student. I think that's a realistic term to be able to participate and not encroach on their schedule as it's unknown. And then I encourage, or I'm happy to see that the city is willing to open it up to others and not just limit it to one high school. I think that was a great idea. I just had one question. You made a comment about boards and commissions or restricted to residents of the city, or it's open to anybody. Did I hear that wrong?
Thank you, Commissioner Fikes. Through the chair, so the member appointed to City Council would be required to be, sorry, I'm hearing my echo now. So the member to the City Council would be required to be a resident. The members appointed to the various boards and commissions would not have the residency requirement, and that was done. They'd have to attend a school, but they wouldn't be required to be a city resident, and that was drafted that way because our city code allows non-residents on our various boards and commissions.
Oh, okay. I did
Did
not
I
know
answer
that.
that?
I was told that you had to be a resident in order to serve on a board or a commission, so I guess that's why I was looking for that clarification.
Thank you.
So I have a question. So are these positions, when you go out now and advertise for them, or however we solicit that, is there people to choose from, or is it normally just one person? My thoughts would be is that because school gets busy and certain people that might fit this criteria are also busy with a lot of school activities, that if we had an alternate, would that be something that would be worth considering so that there would be somebody here more likely every meeting?
Thank you, Chair Twait. I'm going to be honest. I've been doing this for a long time, and recruitment for our office just means making sure that the staff at the schools have the applications. And I have seen years where there has been no interest and no applicants whatsoever. And going out and recruiting students is not something that our office does. It's up to the school administration to do that. If we get no interest, then I can't push the issue. I can ask the administration to reach out to the students again. And then there's been years where we've had a lot of interest and we've been able to appoint alternates. So it's going to depend on the volume of interest we get each application cycle.
Okay, so in the past we have had alternates then. Okay, perfect then. Any other discussion? We feel like Commissioner Glendenning, we pretty happy with it as is?
Yeah, I hate to agree with Commissioner Glendenning, but
Well, there's treatment for that. Okay.
I don't remember.
Oh. All right, I think we're ready to call the roll then.
Commissioner Fikes?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Costin? Commissioner Costin is no longer online. Looks like.
His battery went dead.
Vice Chair Halstead?
yes.
Commissioner Glendenning?
Yes?
Commissioner Woodard?
Yes.
Chair Twait?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, item H2 for action approval, recommending City Council approval of amendments to the City Council procedures for commissions, committees, and Council on Aging, policy number 2016-01. Ms. Sainer.
Thank you, Chair Twait. So this one is, again, if approved by council, it will affect your body. So that's why we brought it to you for recommendation. The scope has been expanded. It previously only referenced the portion of code for the Planning Commission, but there are portions of code for the airport, harbor, and parks. So that was added. Our Council on Aging acts under bylaws, and that is a requirement of how they were originally established. So they don't have a code section. And so that's what changed in the scope. And then if you go down to the next page, the airport manager and commission has asked that their meetings get moved over to the Kenai Municipal Airport Conference Room. So that is in the paragraph B. Paragraph C, as it currently reads, the red will be stricken because the paragraph C is not correct on our meeting times anyway. So we're going to just put in there that regularly scheduled meeting times will be approved by council. That way they can change, if they change in the future, we're not forgetting to update a policy. Paragraph E is oftentimes we do more than council. We reschedule your meetings. So we just added that to that paragraph. The paragraph 4B, so this is a larger change. Right now we're doing summary minutes, and this proposal would change us to action minutes. The action minutes are basic under Robert's rules. They capture what was done, not what was said. And when you're acting as an advisory body, the opinion and recommendations that are acted on and approved by a majority are the ones that should be forwarded to council. Because you also function in quasi-judicial, those minutes for quasi-judicial proceedings will remain summary because those decisions can be appealed, for instance, your conditional use permit. So the discussion involved with that has more weight if it is appealed. Another thing that the commission could do that wouldn't be in this policy is be sure to adopt findings that support their decisions in the quasi-judicial decision making. Are there any questions about the minutes, since that's a substantial change?
Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah,
No.
thank you. Thank you, Chairman Twait. I just have one question here about the recordation of the minutes. We're going to, let's see, we're going to go to action minutes as opposed to summary minutes. But as I recall, we also have video and audio recordation of all deliberations. Is that true? And if that is true, would that be considered also an official record of the proceedings?
Ms. Ainer.
That is correct, and I'm sorry that I don't have everything with me, but I believe that the retention for the video and audio is 6 years. And I will also note that if an appeal is filed, one of the first things we do is do a verbatim transcript. We pay to have that done. So there's also that record if we do receive an appeal.
Thank you.
So a follow-up to that, does the airport conference room have that exact same capabilities?
Since everybody's using Zoom now, yes, we do. They record on their Zoom.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
All right,
you
we'll
carry
go on to the next. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I said, go ahead.
Okay, next page. We added to C that it was already there that the chair and the department liaison created the agenda. However, we're adding that the subjects are relevant to the authority of the board and commission, but as allowed in bylaws or the municipal code. That's to make sure that you guys are taking up issues that you have the authority to take up. And we added a new paragraph J, and that's representation of the body. Members of the Kenai Boards, Commission, Committees, or Council on Aging may only speak on behalf of the body when approved to do so by a majority vote of the body, at which time their basic responsibility is to carry out the body's directive identified within the motion. And the reason for that is you are a body. And when you are speaking, you can speak on a subject as an individual, but you can't go and represent the opinions of the commission unless approved to do so by a motion. Is there any questions about that?
Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah, just a question. Let me see if I understand. So someone can speak on behalf of the body regarding proposed legislation. That would be perhaps someone aside from a sponsor of the legislation. Do I have the thrust of that correct?
So I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, because I'm not sure I'm understanding.
As I understand it, if someone is a sponsor of legislation, they can speak to it. And what we're saying here is that if someone is nominated by the body, say the council, to speak to a legislation, is that an addition or is that a change of policy or a clarification of policy?
Thank you, Commissioner Glendening. So this would only apply to members of boards, commission, committees, or the Council on Aging. And you don't bring forward legislation. So this would be, if you guys felt strongly about a subject before the council, you could move to appoint one of your members to go address the council at their meeting.
Okay, I think there's been rare instances where that has happened. So yeah, that satisfies my question. Thank you.
Okay.
And if we're ready, we'll go on to paragraph 7, council participation. So the very first, we added however, no more than 3 council members may attend one meeting without additional public notice, and we covered that in our training. At the Open Meetings Act, if there are a quorum present, then that's a violation. So if we had more than 3 council members coming to your meeting, we'd need a heads-up notice so that it could be noticed properly. And then this next one speaks to the question of Commissioner Glendening. The council liaison only the council liaison to the respective commission, committee, or council on aging may speak on behalf of the council if approved to do so by a majority vote. Participation of the liaison at the commission or council on aging meeting is limited to updating the body on the actions of the council and reporting back to the council the actions of the commission, committee, council on aging. The liaison is a non-voting member and does not participate in the debate of the advisory body, which that echoes what is already in Kenai Municipal Code. And participation by council members other than the liaison should be limited to one council member who is sponsoring a legislative item to be considered for recommendation from the advisory body. The sponsor participating should be limited to 3-minute testimony and answering questions from the body. The sponsor of the legislation will not participate in debate of the advisory body. When speaking to the advisory body as the legislative sponsor, for the following rules apply. They will not testify from the dais. Testimony shall be made from the designated public comment space. And if the legislative sponsor is the liaison, the legislative sponsor will remove themselves from the dais and seat themselves in the public area. The legislative sponsor shall remain in the public seating area during discussion, debate, and voting on a legislative item. So that clarifies the role a little more of the liaison. And any questions on that?
Commissioner Fikes.
So I think I'm hearing you right. So we can have a liaison from the council, and then we can also have a sponsoring council member for item, and then an additional council member attending. So a total of 3, is that?
You can have up to 3 and not violate the Open Meetings Act, but ideally you would have your liaison and one sponsor from a legislation. So, for instance, Councilmember Naxted is your liaison tonight. If we had another council member who had sponsored legislation, it would be appropriate for them to be there to speak to their legislative item.
And then what if we had an additional one that wanted to offer up residential testimony or offer testimony as an individual but not a council member? How would that be addressed?
Then they would have to preference that they are speaking on behalf of themselves as a resident of the city and not as a council member.
And that would also apply for their participation in the audience? Just to be present and listen? Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Glendening.
Yeah, just sometimes we find ourselves, and I think the answer is obvious, but I just want to get it out there, that say we are at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, And is that because it's a Chamber of Commerce meeting, it's automatically noticed that there may be more than 3 council members there?
Thank you, Commissioner Glendinning. Generally, for the Chamber of Commerce meetings, we don't, and that's because they're meetings that are open to the public already, and city council members, if they're attending, they're listening to the chamber issues, and they shouldn't be discussing or deliberating issues of the body.
Okay, sure, that makes sense, but yet I've heard them comment, but I don't recall that they were commenting, identifying themselves as a council member. They just stated that they were a resident of the city or they had this concern, so, and then would testify or make comments in chamber meetings. So, yeah, that clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. That's everything then, correct?
I think so, unless you guys have other questions for me.
All right, so then I would look for a motion, please. Vice Chair Halstead.
I move we approve the recommendation for the City Council approval of amendments to the City Council procedures for commissions, policy number 2016-01.
Second. All right, discussion. We like it as is. Commissioner Fikes.
Was there any reason for this, or was there a precipitous that led to this, or is it just a general housekeeping?
Ms. Ainer.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Fikes. Through the chair, I started a process of reviewing every council adopted policy. My goal is to put them in one book and track them. And so this has been, I can't remember the exact number, but there were, I believe, 9 others that have already been through council. And these 2 came through the commissions before I take them finally to council because they affect the commissions. But we repealed a policy, we've amended several, and a few others we simply renumbered and changed the names a little bit. So it'll be sort of like code. There'll be specific sections. And again, I apologize because I'm not at home. I don't have the document with me. But they'll have, right now we have 3 categories of council policies. One that are advisory to the administration, one that affects boards and commissions, and one that apply to council members. And I think there's 3 policies in each of those. So these are just housekeeping, updating, and coming up with a consistent policy in place, a consistent place for all policies that are easy to find. Once this document is finalized, everybody will get a copy.
Sounds great. It's a welcome change, so I'm glad you took on that chore. So it certainly makes it, like you said, a lot easier when you have a question or an issue arise to have one standard or one location to go to try and find that answer or guidance to navigate through that issue. So thank you for doing that.
Commissioner Glendinning.
Thank you, Chairman Twait. Just a question. For someone to speak on legislation, they can say they declare themselves as a sponsor or whatnot, but it has to be already in the legislative process. Is that correct? In other words, it has to go through the acceptance by the council as legislation approved by the clerk's office before someone is how can we say restricted or obligated to the policy we're about to adopt. I recall there was a council member that came and testified before us on proposed legislation, and I just wondering if that prospect goes away, or if that's just someone that's testifying because of a concern that they have within the community and wanted to alert the Planning and Zoning Commission to a concern.
Thank you, Commissioner Glendinning, through the chair. So generally, yes, a piece of legislation, council is going to ask you for recommendations on a piece of legislation. For instance, these 2 policies tonight haven't been put in a resolution before the council yet. We had a very thorough work session, and I let them know that I would be taking the policies through the commissions prior to putting them and legislation, because to be honest, I didn't know how long it would take to get through all of the commissions and committees. So I will have the legislation drafted with how each one recommended in it. But for a council member to come bring legislation to, or ideas to commissions before it's actually taken form is not, and I apologize if I get too detailed, it's not actually that effective because that may never come to fruition. So it should actually be in the introduction phase before the council prior, and council members also, they get the final say in an issue. So that's part of why they should probably refrain as much as possible from testifying to commissions, because they get the final say and debate with the body and who actually finalizes the legislation. Did that answer?
Thank you for that clarification, and I appreciate the insight.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Woodard,
Yes.
Chair Tweet,
Yes.
Commissioner Fikes,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Costa, Vice Chair Halstead,
Yes.
Commissioner Glendenning.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you all. I'm going to go because I have to be back at the hospital at 6 a.m. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on. We have no pending items. J, reports. We'll start with J1, City Council. Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you, Chair Twait. Always glad to be here. I'm just the liaison for tonight. I think Mr. Baisden, according to a Facebook post, is chasing balls out in someplace warm, you know, and it's what he does anyway, golfing. But anyway, I wanted to say first is, you know, I haven't been here for quite a while, and we do have a new planner, and I think you do a great job, but I think all of you do a really good job together. I was impressed tonight with thoroughness and whatnot, and how you all work together. So good job. Glad to see it. I don't get anything out of that. I'm just saying, you know, it's true. And I guess when I sat down here tonight at 7 o'clock, I told Jeff I was going to go over everything in great detail, but it's getting past my bedtime now. So I don't think, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a couple of things, and if you have any questions, let me know. You have our action agenda. There's two meetings in the packet there. The first one is March 1st. Just kind of moving on down. We authorized the purchase of 4 new police cars, and so they'll be coming, kind of cycling through. We adopted unanimously a resolution authorizing the purchase of real property at the base of the bluff for the bluff erosion project. There's still another couple of lots to pick up, but this one's a particularly complicated one. It's in an estate, and there's a number of others that have possession too, and our attorney is working through all of those details. And we did a budget transfer for a roof replacement for the visitor center. That was bid before, probably a poor time of the year. At any rate, it was done again, and that will happen this summer. So you'll see a new roof over there on the visitor center. And we could talk a lot about chickens, because the council certainly did. We were here till 11 o'clock at night doing that, and we went through your suggested amendments and whatnot. I guess there were quite a number of them. Do you have any questions of what we did? Maybe you read the paper, so I don't have to. Okay, good. I'm going to move on then, you know. So I'm going to go to March 15th. And less there really, we requested from the state of Alaska some funding for the Wildwood Drive that goes out to the prison. Turns out there's quite a bit of silt underneath that road, and the design for that would be to take all the silt out, build it back up. So it becomes $1 million project essentially, as opposed to what we thought it was going to be, more like $350,000-ish. And it's primarily there to, it used to go out to the Wildwood Air Force Base. It was an Army base too before that. But at any rate, the prison And so it's a state road, so we think it's appropriate for the state to help with some of the funding on that. So we will see how that goes as it goes through their process here. It is a transportation thing, which usually is high. We also approved a memorandum of agreement for the regional fire training grounds. Folks there that were running that, the business has been purchased, and that's really not what they want to do. They don't want to do the fire training ground portion. They want to do other stuff with part of the facility. So well, I don't have it in my notes in front of me here, but I think it's DOT in Anchorage. Anyway, they're going to be managing it. It's a kind of a short-term thing, because it is the largest one in the state of Alaska, and it's really important, for fire safety, especially for airports. The only other thing is we just generally, as Shelley said, we've been going over all these policies in some detail. There's quite a few of them, and I think it's great to have them all in one place rather than willy-nilly all over, and we don't know, what they are, but they'll be in a book. They'll be bound, and you'll be have that available to you. Did get an email from Terry, our city director, and anyway, Larry Simmons is going to come and fill in as the finance director in the short term, and he used to be the finance director here. I don't know if he was at the borough for a while, but he's really an A1 fella anyway. So he's going to help out with that. Of course, we got budget coming up and everything, he knows his stuff, and with Terry, that should work out really, really well. So that's what I have. Do you have any questions of anything here or anything else with the city? Anything at all?
Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah, just a question regarding funding for the bluff. Is that largely in place now? Regarding what the perceived cost is, and then our portion of that, and we have that money well in hand. I guess it's a complex question, but are we covered? With
what we know, yes. And there's also some other factors that factor into it that might actually reduce the cost as far as the city's portion of it, with how that goes. The Corps of Engineers said they're going to do it, and the bid date is in August, and when they'll actually award a contract, I believe. And so then, of course, there'll be staging and materials and all of that, so the construction wouldn't start until the following year. But lots of positive on that. So after 30, 40 years of trying to get here, I think we're about out there.
Okay, yeah, I'm occasionally asked questions, so thank you for the update.
Okay.
Any other, Commissioner Greenberg?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, there's like one lot that used to be like a cannery or something, it's completely eroded. Is that one? So if you look in the river, there's a lot that's in the river now. Yes. When you build that back up, does that ownership come into play, I wonder? Is this the lot that you're discussing? Is it the one that is completely eroded?
It is. It is completely eroded, and gosh, I think it used to belong to somebody that owned Kenai Joe's way back, and I do not. And it's over the bluff it's submerged wetland, and we'll own it. So no, it will not. It'll just be there, but the city owns it, just like we own a lot of submerged lands. So, yeah. Well, we pretty much have the bottom of the river, from some miles out all the way up.
Okay.
Generally, so that would be just another example of that, I suppose.
Okay, thank you. Just curious about that one.
Yeah.
Quick question on the Wildwood Drive. Is getting the state involved in that, is that going to delay that whole program, or shall it speed it up, or will it still just take a while?
I guess I'm not sure what the schedule is. If the state were to, going through this budget cycle, authorize those funds, and we received them, I believe the design is complete. So theoretically, it could be built this summer. It's not that long. It's just an earthwork job, really, and you pave it. So that's not how things often work, though. So I would anticipate it being built this year, but it could be the following year. It could be a couple of year thing, perhaps. Even.
Okay. All right, anybody else? All right, we will move on to item J2, Borough Planning, Commissioner Fikes.
Alrighty, short and sweet. We assembled on March 20th. We had a quorum, and we had before us a utility easement vacation in the Diamond Ridge area, and it was a 10-foot easement that was approved. And then we moved on to a section line easement, and those are public lands, or considered public lands, so there was some extensive and robust discussion with that one, with some staff recommendation to include, can't even read my own notes. But there were staff recommendations with that one. I just remember there was some concern on access, giving it up, and what have you. But ultimately, that one was approved. That was also in the Diamond Ridge area. And then we were looking at a pedestrian easement vacation, and this one was in the city of Soldotna, and this was over by the Riverview, the development we just talked about. Homestead subdivision, they were looking for a 20-foot pedestrian easement to be granted on Mullen, and so that one was approved. That was just kind of a cleanup. My understanding was 2 plots that were brought together, and there was a pedestrian easement left in the middle, so not a lot of discussion on that one. And then we were looking at a seismic trail vacation in the Ninilchik area, and that one was ultimately approved. And then that brought us up to some review and discussion with the director and the commission as far as bylaws. We were reviewing the bylaws. They've never been addressed before. And so Commissioner Ruffner had given us a draft and presentation, and so we were going circling back and having some discussion back and forth on what that might look like. So moving forward, it looks like before the end of this year, we should have that in place. And that was all we had.
Any questions? All right, we'll move on to item J3, City Administration, Planning Director Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair Twait. So I have a little bit, since we didn't have a meeting the last time. First, I want to address the laydown material, the email from Christine Smith. Her response was based on looking at our work session and following up when we're going to have them. So I just wanted to provide what her comments are in regards to signage in Kenai, as well as how we are going to address short-term rentals when we have those work sessions. So if you have any comments regarding that, what she's provided, happy to answer some of her concerns, or we can address it when we have these work sessions. But I wanted just to pass along her comment. And then in your packet as well, River Center Open House is tomorrow night from 5 to 7. And this is a multi-agency facility, and we, as a city of Kenai, will be representing there to answer any questions that residents want to develop in the floodplain or anywhere where there's streams and water, and what does that look like. So the billing official, Don Hendrickson, and myself will be there tomorrow night with hopefully applications and helping people navigate through our process, or give them a basic understanding of, oh, if you want to build this, this is what you're going to be required, and so forth. And so this is an exciting opportunity just for members of the public, and if you know anyone and that might be wanting to develop and they're near the floodplain or stream of water, any sorts, this would be the time for them to come out and ask the questions, because all the agencies will be there. On that note, I wanted to give you an update of my NFIP training in Anchorage for a week. Very intensive and very technical, because if anyone is doing development in the special flood hazard area, there is quite the review, and now they're required to get an additional permit in addition to their building permit, in addition to their landscape and site plan, and staff, myself being the administrator, then has to determine the base floor area, what they're building, determine what kind of structure is appropriate and how they're going to build it if they want to build in the floodplain. And so with that being said, I am going to pursue my certified floodplain manager because it's so technical. I'm going to forget it if I'm not practicing. And we don't have a lot of properties. So I just want to have that background. And we are in the process of also updating the map. And I'm going to be doing a lot of meetings with FEMA staff, collaborating on what things we want to change or them giving us advice on what things we could change to our ordinance, even though we just adopt it and refine it. Because just an overview of this program is if we adopt more restrictive code, that can mean better rates for people who want floodplain insurance. But being part of this program, if we're not compliant of our requirements to be in the program, anyone who gets floodplain insurance gets a surcharge because the city is not, we're getting penalized, and it's going back to those who get floodplain insurance through FEMA. So as a city, we have to have certain record database, so if they come and stop in and just check in, how are we doing our process? Is our updated information correct? So these are things that I now have to make sure that it's all in place. Applications, asking the right question when we approve it, how we're record keeping it, for how long, that it's just clear when they come in, this is where you're looking at, this is what we approved this year. So I just kind of want to let you know that while we are accepting a program, there's a lot more that's required of staff to maintain to be in good standing with FEMA. Update on admin assistant, I've narrowed down some top candidates and I'm conducting reference checks, so hopefully if all things go well, I could be offering by next week. So that's exciting. Appreciation lunch. So there was a commission and committee training and appreciation lunch at the Chamber of Commerce on February 23rd, where we recognize our longest serving commissioners. Since not everyone was there, your certificate and your pin is at your seat. So I'd like to recognize Vice Chair Halstead for 8 years, serving the city on the Parks and Rec Commission and Planning and Zoning Commission. And Commissioner Fikes for 10 years, serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Commissioner Greenberg for 10 years, serving on the Harbor Commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission. And please note the number of years on your pin is based on a 3-year term served, not actual length of serve. Yes. All right. Let's see, what is my next? I have a couple. If you have not heard already, our Parks and Rec Director, Brad Walker, has resigned. His last day will be the first week of April, so the job posting is listed right now if you know anyone that is open to apply for. So I won't be here the next meeting, so unfortunately I didn't update the agenda to say that the next meeting is not the first meeting in April or second week in April. I will be at a Sign Expo in Vegas from April 10th to 13th. I got a scholarship for it, and really our sign code is really outdated, and so I signed up for a workshop in particular of getting firsthand perspective of those who apply for signs, who gets the sign permits, what are their struggles from someone outside the city, and hopefully drafting a very creative way that we can enforce, but also make City of Kenai look great with their signage appropriately. So hopefully when I come back, we can have a work session on our sign code and then amend it. I do want to share with you some of my struggle with the public notice signs that I have that needs to be posted on the premise for public hearings. So I've been actually doing it myself and not relying on the applicant, because we get a lot of applicants that are out of town, and mostly in wintertime they're not in town. So I've taken it upon myself to post it, but those are not easy to post when it's snow and they don't stand up. And so I'm like driving every couple of days because, I don't want that responsive, I didn't see signage posted accordingly. If you have any ideas of how staff can legally be in compliance with our own ordinance when it comes to posting signs, mostly in the winter time, because even for the Performing Arts Theater, it's a vacant lot. I have nothing to go off of, and I put it as far back as I can climb in, and with the snowplow, it disappeared. And then I was digging for it, and it's just something, a burden that I prefer not to deal with. And so if we can come up with a creative way to address that, or maybe amend the code to alleviate that, I would be open to that discussion. So, and then I just wanted to follow up on tonight's meeting regarding lodging and enforcement of CUPs. I do intend to do surprise visits on these CUPs, mostly these lodgings, Airbnb, short-term rentals during its peak season, so that I can really see firsthand. And it's good for me to see, are these complaints really valid? And if so, then the best way is for me to see it. And that will be my way of being proactive. Because I know it's a history of, and I get a lot of comments that it hasn't been done well with enforcement. But so far, I haven't gotten a lot of negative comments. And so I want to start changing that. And then I am also working on a one-stop shop for development permits, meaning when people come in, they're not running across the way to talk to the fire marshal. And when they come in, they're waiting for the building official. Then we all give them very conflicting codes and regulations or code standards. And so I've been taking lead on it because I want to expedite it. People shouldn't have to feel like, okay, well, who trumps who? So we're collaborating and asking ourselves where we're flexible, who has flexibility in their ordinance, what's their true concern? Is this health and safety? Okay, that's something we can't push and give. So we've been having a lot of pre-application meetings, and if you know anyone who is doing development, they can reach out to me, and I've been coordinating these meetings with the fire marshal and the building official, and I've seen a lot of success. Just with Doug Clegg for the CUP for assistant living, we did that with them, and all those conditions, he had no problems with it because we had that conversations early on of what the expectations are. And that's all I have for you, and thank you for staying late, and I appreciate your time.
I have two things. The council liaison would be a perfect person, I think, to go post those signs. Seems like the appropriate thing.
Can we vote on that now?
I think we should. Yeah.
I'll just volunteer, I'll put on my snowshoes and.
And the second thing I have is that in late January, I lost some of my money in Vegas. If you see it down there, bring that back would be okay.
I might keep it for myself.
Yes. Other than that, anyone else have any questions? Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah, we have a waterfront development scheme going on, and you had mentioned about, say, tomorrow, there's a government organization that has interest in our property, our waterfront. There's NGOs that, like testified tonight, that want to have input on our property and our management, and there's also state, federal strictures. Is this something that we're going to be more difficult, have more difficulty, shall I say, in managing this, or do we have a clear path forward? For example, there was, when we were trying to do our bluff erosion project, there was lengthy discussions and negotiations who, if the River Center, for example, would have a veto power over that. And I think it was negotiated away, but in the future, they may have a say-so on something we want to do on our waterfront and on the mud that we own under the river. So it's just a little warning flare that maybe we should be aware of that and head it off or negotiate to our advantage should this question come up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Additional public comment? I see nobody anywhere, so we're good there. We talked about informational items. Next meeting on the 12th or the 26th? 26th? 26th. Wow. That's like it's a good thing we went long tonight then. Get our money out.
Nothing on the 12th, huh?
That's over a month.
Oh, okay.
That is a long time. All right, commissioners' comments and questions. Commissioner Glendenning.
Thanks for a good meeting. Bye.
Commissioner Woodard.
I have a petition book here for repealing the ranked choice voting, if anybody would care to sign it.
Very good. Vice Chair Halsted.
Yeah, I think it was a great meeting. Again, skipped dinner, so the candy bowl was very much appreciated. But
Mine is
the
picked through
bottled
as well.
water that you have is horrible. If we could work on that. Thank you.
Commissioner Greenberg.
Yeah, sorry I missed the last meeting, the chicken meeting. I was back east, but I did watch it. I think the whole thing, pretty impressive. But I think that was a good process. I think that was great that it went through that process and the ordinance was, or not, wasn't an ordinance, but was it not? No. It was refined enough that I think it satisfied and came to a good compromise. I think it was good work on everybody's part.
Commissioner Fikes.
Thank you for my certificates. And it's a long night, so good night.
All right, and I'm just going to throw this out, one thing. Back to the CUP on the lodging, and we talked about the number of people, and we said it was maybe not appropriate just because we haven't done it in the past, but until we do it that first time, we won't have that to do. So we're going to have to jump out and do it. I think it's a good thing to do, and we can work on it down the line. But other than that, I thought it was a great meeting as well. All the business complete. Meeting is adjourned.